unspeakable crime, murder at midnight. A deal I made, a life I had to take. Someone I loved once held so tight. The screams will follow me, cries of my ancestors sent going. My operate, fasting in brain, shape-shifting. I feel the animal hide inside me. I feel the change. I feel the change coming. We are one but not the same. This form I desire, innocent blood I will devour. Ancestors gathering round the dwelling, the spirit inhabiting, evil enveloping, the dancing graves in the night, the spirit occupying and transforming, stolen heights, dark practices, my secret life, feathered outers, mysticism, intriguing, my operate, fasting in brain, shape-shifting. I feel the animal hide inside me. I feel the change. I feel the change coming. We are one but not the same. Give me the ability to hide in plain sight, so no one can see me, not even in the light. I am the crawler, armor within, I'm nobody's friend. This initiation is all part of the dark creation. My desires performing incantations. I walk in disguise. If I catch you, it's your demise. Shamanism, my religion, summoning spirits, manifesting myself and changing my flesh. A nightmare to behold. I'ma make you part of the fold. The skin of a man, the soul of a predator. The change is complete. This thing I become, my flesh has succumbed. My operate, fasting in brain, shape-shifting. I feel the animal hide inside me. I feel the change. I feel the change coming. We are one but not the same.
Catching a reflection in the mirror of something standing in the corner of my room, watching me, observing me. Is it my imagination or insanity? A strange hum, a flash of light. I'm overcome, nothing but fright. Otherworldly beings taking me in the night. I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. What do I do? What do I do? Where are they taking me? Where are they taking me? I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. I don't feel real. I wake up in my bed. Was it just in my head? Looking at my hand, there's something there. Inside of me, I'm feeling oh so scared. Confusion and nasty fear. It wasn't just a nightmare. So loud, so bright, hypnotizing me, figures lost in time. I'm tortured, surrounding
take me? What could not break me to feel so alive? Overflowing elation, ready for war. Ready for war, ready for war. Ready for war. Hunting for food and pleasure.
All right, folks. Welcome to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Josh Turner, and this is PRT. Everybody hear me pretty good? Because that's important. I want everybody to be able to hear me. All right. So if you guys have been paying attention, I don't know if you guys have been watching the last few live streams, or maybe you're just showing up right now for this live stream. But the last few live streams, we have really gone after some subjects. I was going to go and reference them, but I don't think they're. Let me see here. Let's see if I can get them all together, folks. That's what I'm trying to do, so I can go back and reference these particular episodes. Okay, so they were labeled. Good. All right, so Saturday's episode of episode 246, there was some stuff that we got into, and I can't remember exactly what all we were talking about, but we got into some different subjects. And so to answer the question a few of you asked about those particular Bible verses, I don't have time to sit there with every single buddy that has messaged me, which is like, I guess, several people. And asking me for those verses. Just go and watch the show, and I quote those verses. They're on there, and you can find them. I'm sorry, I do not have time to do that. I really don't. I'm doing a lot of work right now. So here's what we're doing. Here's what we're looking at here. I got a lady who lives up in Canada who had messaged me, and she lived in Nova Scotia, in that area, when this happened years and years ago. And her name was Crystal. And what she had told me was interesting and shocking, to say the least. And it was she had originally talked to Armando, who's since passed away. A lot of time went by, and she re-messaged us we had literally planned on doing her show or a show about that. And this was the very, very beginning. Crystal was the first person that ever told us anything about black goo. Wasn't the first time we'd ever heard about it. Armando had actually heard about it in the military, and it was one of the things that he had planned on talking about on a later show. But he didn't really have a frame of reference for it. All he had was stories from the Rock, and did not really know. And he was planning on interviewing some people before he passed, because he was still doing a little bit of work with us and doing some like saying, hey, I got somebody who's got a story, blah blah blah. He'd help out. And when he left the show, I was kind of aggravated with him in the way that, you know, he left us hanging on a few different cases. That was my whole deal, was just that we had cases that we needed to go over and we needed to cover. And I felt like he was kind of bailing on us when we were starting to gain momentum. But he had other things going on, and there was just, and I'm going to say this, I mean, there was just too much drama going on in this field. And he told me that too. He goes, you can stay in if you want. He's like, but there's just too many bad people in this field. I mean, that was his words to me, to Tony, Anthony, to Nelly, to my brother, to all of us. He just said, you guys, I wish you luck. And he decided to kind of go and work behind the scenes, because it was something that he was passionate about. He was interested in the subject. He liked learning about it, but he didn't like all the bull crap. And there were just too many people. I mean, we sat there arguing with these people one night when they came onto his page and attacked him because they believed a certain way, and they didn't like that we believed a certain way. And he was just like, man, this is too much, man. I got into this thank you, to have fun. And here we are fighting with these people. And he told me, he said, you know, he told me, he's like, Wolf, you're one of my best friends in the world. And he's like, and you're going to fight forever with these people because, in his words, they're ignorant. I haven't talked a whole lot about what Armando had said and how he felt about things. And I was aggravated with a lot of stuff at that time. I felt like he kind of abandoned the situation, you know, and left it to me to deal with. So I was a little bit resentful. You know, we all were. And you know, I just, you know, and I wasn't really so much resentful with him as just with the situation and with the people and the way they were. And the first war that we were involved in was already going on when I first started the show, and I tried to stay neutral, but there was just this push from the one side trying to make this into, this is a flesh and blood creature we're dealing with, and there's nothing else to it. And if you were to dare bring up anything about black goo, you would have been just drummed from the what they call the cryptid community, which I laugh at that term because it's not really a community, is it? It's just a bunch of people who got opinions. Most of the people don't even have many encounters to talk about. And then they wondered that, you know, the people that were our enemies, you know, were like, well, why are people going to them and not us? And then they began to harass the people that were sending stories to us. And they were like, hey, look, man, you know, I gave you my story. Now this person's over here breathing down my neck. And so we kind of started a policy way back when Armando was with us. Let's just say the first name, kind of be more vague about the location. I know it doesn't do as much, it doesn't give it as much credibility, but it just kind of has to be that way, because if people know where it's at, they're going to go run over there, which they did with a few of the places, because we were not vague enough. And then they will hunt down the names of these people, and they will aggravate the crap out of these people, whether these people want them to or not. And so it just became the standard of how we do things. And, you know, the more incredible the story that someone tells you, the more they're going to be trolled and messed with, because that is the nature of the people that are in this field. Okay. And if they give them the story, then they're all about it. Yeah, I believe this guy 100%. But if they didn't get the story first, then they're immediately going to throw shade and say that it didn't happen. And so it was happening so much that it's, thank you. That's a good question. That's a good statement. Scorpion, right off the crack of the bat there. Didn't know you were even in the chat. Says it's not a community. It's different groups with their own opinions and blinders towards getting to the truth. Yes. And Scorpion, you were also very close with Armando, as was my brother. And you were involved in a meeting we had shortly before Armando dropped out. And then, he died later of COVID, which was very unfortunate, And so it was year before last when him and Johnny passed away, 3 days from each other, and we were all working on this project. I had been talking with both of them about the Bell Witch, and weirdly enough, both of them were seeing or thinking that they saw something on the side of their bed. I saw something too around the same time. We all had COVID at the same time. It was weird. It was me, Armando, Johnny Henderson, Elijah Henderson. I don't remember if Barton was sick at that time. I know Lyle was sick. Everybody was sick. And that's when I had gotten a phone call from Ken Gerhardt saying, hey, I'm not a big believer in all that, but there is a curse attached to this stuff, and maybe there's something to it. I don't know. And then, then I got a call from Jason Bland from Paranormal Soup, nice guy. And Jason said the same thing, man. He goes, I don't know, man. I don't mess with the Bell Witch. I know, I think it's of late Martin Groves had talked about it or something like that. And I know that Elijah, after his dad's passing, he kind of shelved it. But it was a weird thing, man. We had some weird stuff happen, and there was this black goo conversation that is one of the last conversations I had with Armando before he passed away, and with Johnny. We had talked about the black goo and people seeing it and what it was, and it seemed like everyone got sick. And then, it was just, I saw something getting out of the shower and I yelled and my wife opened the door and I don't know. I saw it looked like a hag. I don't know. That's all I can tell you. I don't know. It was the second time in my life I've seen it. The first time was when I was 11, but it looked very similar. Just younger. Like you looked younger than the one I had seen when I was like 11. So I don't know what those were. I think I look back and think on the one that when I was 11 was some kind of like a hag I think it was just somebody who was out of their body and going around harassing probably somebody that lived in my neighborhood that I didn't know as a child and was looking for energy. Knowing what I know now, people do that. It's called soul searching, and they go around and they look. And so they attach or whatever. So here's what we got to talk about. And the reason that we're doing the show right now early, we were supposed to do it a lot earlier today, but I just wasn't feeling up to it. I was very, very tired. I've been very drained lately. It's nonstop with these idiots that are doing what they do. And so missed my appointment today with my lawyer. So I don't know. I got things I got to take care of. I got to deal with, and I got to talk to these people and try to get some sort of resolution, so that I can be at peace and my family can be at peace and be left alone. Because these people aren't going to stop just because you ask them to. That you can even apparently send out letters. They don't care. So it's gonna have to get escalated because they're not paying attention. They're just pretending like you're not doing anything. So unfortunately, that's what we're dealing with. We did have the conversation again this past weekend about continuing, we have to, like, every month, I guess now, just kind of weigh the balance. Is it worth it for us to keep going? Should we keep going? Should we keep, doing what we do, bringing people the information, or should we just throw in the towel and walk away because it's just too much? There have been so many good people that I've seen get driven from the field. I was just talking to one yesterday and she's just like, yeah, I'm just tired. I'm done. I'm not talking about Bettina. She's another one. But then she's just like, there's just too much crap. It's just too much. It's always something. And the people that do this, they have an inexhaustible amount of energy to do this. Now, if they really were doing real work and research and doing real shows, they wouldn't have that energy. Their energy would be into this, because most people, and I'll be real honest, aren't like me. They just don't have the ability to run two businesses, do the show, and do it as hardcore as we do, go deep like we do, and still fight and defend yourself. Most people don't have that kind of energy. They just don't. So you're sitting there going like, this is, insane that these people do. So we have to let you know, that it is a subject. It is something that has come up now pretty much every month. Like, are we going to keep going? Are we going to be able to handle this? I keep saying yes, because I can handle it. I can do this. I'm built for this. I'm not afraid, and I'm not going to stop. Thank you for everybody who's showing up. Be sure to like and subscribe. And as always, anything that you have negative, please don't say it in the chat. You will be booted. Not too many people do that. They don't really try and pull that crap, but we do every now and then. We get people that just want to, and we get a different crowd. Like, this is a late afternoon crowd, early evening. It's a different crowd than the later in the evening crowd, or even the overnight crowd. And it's a different crowd than the morning day, early day crowd. And it depends on the day. It depends on the day. And so here we are. We have almost 300 people in the chat. I'm waiting to get some people in here that we're going to get started. We already have somebody that said something. Kevin Clow. Yeah, let's not talk like that. I know people, trust me. I mean, if I wanted this to end for real, I could, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not that kind of guy. That's a whole nother life. Thank you, BMR, for that donation. I greatly appreciate it. And we do need it, because we are using it for a legal fund. Also, we need to get our camera equipment. The camera equipment thing is a pain in the butt, because we had gotten like about half of what we needed, and then we had to use that for legal fees. And now we're sitting here going like, this sucks, because we still need the camera equipment, and we also need to upgrade the computer here at the house, and then the cameras. One of them over there at the studio is starting to poop out on us, and then this one needs to be upgraded. So we have a lot of things we got to do, and we're trying to not have to dump all of our money from our other business into this business to keep it going. And yes, the business end of this is real. You have to deal with it. But I'm not going to sit up here and ask you for money. And as always, I'm not going to put anything behind a paywall. Now, when the day comes that we have to do that to try to sustain the show, that may be when we decide to throw in the towel. The day comes that we just can't take the harassment and all that. And it's really the people around me. People say, oh, well, if it doesn't bother you, why are you talking about it? Because it bothers the people that I care about. I love my wife, my family, my nephews. It bothers them. My brother's getting sick of hearing it. Every time he turns around, he's seeing somebody do it, and it's pissing him off. My friends, my family, they're sick of it. There's a lot of my family and friends in my real day-to-day life who don't like seeing me stressed out, and they keep encouraging me to walk away from this. And like, how much is it worth to you? To me, it's worth everything. Everything we've built and everything we've done. I want to get to the bottom of this stuff. I want to get to the truth. And it seems like after I say anything that brings us closer, we get attacked hardcore. So last night on the show, we talked about, this is why we need better descriptions on these shows, but we talked about the Caspian Sea, and it was a ghost ship, and it was a really scary story. There were these creatures that were coming from the depths of the ocean, and they're called the Runan Cha. That's the actual name of them, and they're known throughout from all the countries: Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Turkey, or Iran. I'm sorry. And then I was kind of confused by that too, because I thought that Turkey bordered. I know they border the Black Sea, but I guess they don't border the Caspian. But Iran, and then of course you have the Soviet Union. At that time was the Soviet Union. Now Russia, and you have all these countries, Azerbaijan, and they are the countries that border that area. But let me see something real quick here, because people were asking me about that last night after the show. Let me see if I can get a map here. Okay. Anyway, it's going to take too long to try to pull that up, but I don't have anybody in here with me to help. But thank you, Chopper Dave, for that donation. Thank you. Who else donated? I want to make sure I get everybody's in there. Thank you for that. Harpin Blues, is that your name? To legal aid and peace. Yeah, I would love peace. And Chopper Dave. Anyways, if I had a map, I could look at it and tell you all the different countries it borders. I had them memorized, but I don't. I had other things I had to put in my mind. But there are multiple countries that it. And then people were asking me about the salinity, like how much salt water is it? It's about a third of the salt water that is in the actual ocean itself. But it's not considered a salt water. It's considered fresh water, but it's really brackish water. And the primary, the water that flows into it is from the Volga. I think it's like 70, 80% or something like that comes from the Volga, which is in Russia. And that is a very strong, powerful current that goes in there. Volgograd was the place where they were trying to get those cryptid bodies. I call them cryptids, inhumanoid bodies. They were trying to get them to this inland place, and that's when they were attacked by what they described as these giant hairy creatures. Now, last night, or actually earlier today, I did message my friend Vasily and asked him. And he said that's all he knows. He couldn't give me any more about who or what those creatures were, or a better description. They were just a pack of hairy, when the train had come to a stop, some of the people were killed aboard the train. And the ones that were left alive described these hairy beasts that were like 8-9 foot tall that tried to come onto the train and attack. I don't think that they got anywhere close to taking the specimens, and I believe that the specimens ended up in Russia. They were not bound for Russia originally. I think they were going to Iran, but they were going by way of Turkmenistan because there was some sort of an agreement. And like I said, I need to know which country it was. I think it was like, okay, Iran, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, and Russia. Yeah. And I think they were headed for Astrakhan, which is like this city. Let me see. And just to make sure I'm on the right track here. Which is part of like Russia, but not really. It's weird how it's kind of like Hong Kong was part of Great Britain, but it wasn't. It was just China, but it's, still part of it. And so that's where they were bound. And Iran was the country that they were supposed to be going to, I guess. And then they ended up kind of veering off and heading in the direction of Kazakhstan, or Turkmenistan, I'm sorry, and then moved upward. And then they ended up running into the same shipping lane that ran from Azerbaijan to Kazakhstan. Now, those countries were sort of like satellite countries of Russia. And this was a former military vessel that had been turned into a shipping freighter. Are you leaving? Okay. Oh. Where you headed?
I'm about to go eat.
That's Tony. So what ended up happening was they were shipping. It was a shipping channel that they had run into, and so that was the story. That's what ended up happening, and it was a big mess, And then of course, the guy that was involved in it. Hold on one second. Verikov, that was his name, Zook Verikov. And the name of the ship, which some people were asking me the name of the ship, they were Volkov. The Volkov was the name of his ship, and it's kind of confusing because Verikov was the ship captain, and the Volkov was the name of the ship. The other ship was called like the Dragonfly, but it was a Kazaki name or something. Volkov means wolf in Russian. And so I think it was actually called like the Sea Wolf or something like that. And it was a military grade. It was used in World War II. Trying to remember like a little more details, but anyway, that's what happened, and that's the show that we talked about last night, and it was pretty fun to listen to when he was telling me the story. I really enjoyed listening to it and hearing all the things about what had happened with his grandfather. We did another stream a couple days ago. That was on Friday night. If you go back and listen to that, that was a fun one. And we had Monica Rollins, Joe Breezy, and Abe Bacias on. So that was Friday night. That would have been number 244. And then number 245. I know we haven't gotten as many views on these shows because we've been doing them every day. So we haven't had a chance for people to catch up. Then we did one more Dogman, Reptilians, and Ghosts, and that was a live stream, number 245, and that one was on a Saturday day. Now, what we were trying to do is trying to get a feel for when the best time would be to try to, move some stuff around and maybe do some dayside stuff, or do some earlier stuff like this one we're doing. It's earlier. And I'm sorry if this is boring you, but I got to get this information out so we can kind of figure out what we're doing and what direction we need to take the show. Now, the number 246, that's got almost 4,000 views, and that was Saturday. So it's lagging behind a little bit. But then we did Terrifying Paranormal Encounters, Ghost Ship. That was last night, and now here we are today with the Bigfoot, Dogman, and Black Goose. So if you haven't listened to those, go back and check them out. I think it's worth a listen. I think you guys will enjoy the last few nights and what we've done. Few days, actually, nights and days. We will be on again tomorrow because it's our normal night, which is Tuesday, and we'll have some stuff we're going to talk about. I have literally, I am not joking, probably 40 to 50 people that need to come on the show and tell their encounter. But I also have about 2,000 stories, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm being serious. That I need to, and I deleted a bunch on accident, like 500 of them. I don't think they were all stories. A lot of times I get messages from people and they're not stories. But if you send me messages like encouraging words or kind words, whatever, I appreciate it, but I may not have seen it. I may not have gotten to it because I deleted it. And then my messenger, I lost a bunch of, I don't know, I think it was acting wacky, man. And so I restarted it and I lost some stuff on there, and I'm trying to figure out what the heck happened to my phone. Annoying. It's just annoying. Anyways, it's hard to keep track of everything. And if I don't answer you, it's not that I don't like you or I'm ignoring you, or even if it shows that I looked at it, because it'll be like, like people say, oh, did you get my message? and I'll go back and maybe I clicked on it or something, but I didn't read it, or I didn't get a chance to read it. I just didn't get a chance to whatever. I'm not ignoring you. Trust me. I'm trying to reach. Hang on, man. Good God. I'm trying to get to as many people as possible. Paula Campbell says, I sent my story on March 30th and resent it several days ago, just in case. That's all you can do, is just keep sending it, because I got so many. And then I figured out, for some reason, on the Das Wolfman account and on the PRT, Josh Turner at PRTpodcast.com, which is the best way to get a hold of me, this sucker started sending it to the junk. But it was like picking and choosing what it wanted to send. Like, I'm talking about it like it's a sentient being, but it seemed like it was like picking and choosing what it wanted to have in there. And I'm going to say something else, and this is going to sound weird but a lot of what I say is pretty weird. There was like several emails that were very pertinent to the things that I was talking about, and in particular, like alien abduction, and the black goo. Every email that I got, get this, about the black goo went into junk. If in the title it talked about reptilians, it went to the junk. If it talked about black goo, into the junk. Now, if it just said Bigfoot, Dogman, or ghost, it was fine. But if it said werewolves, into the junk. Vampires, into the junk. Goo, black goo, into the junk. You see what I'm saying? I mean, it's I thought that was kind of odd. Like, I was showing Anthony and Tony, and I was like, y'all, do you see this? Like, this is like, this is kind of weird, man. And if it had any kind of abduction thing, which is something I talked the truth about too, it was like, it's like they don't want us having any of that. Like on Saturday, Rob Yox jumped off, and then so did Chris James, and it was just me and Truth on there. Truth is from his show is called An Impromptu Truth. They're twins, him and his brother. If you don't know who they are, they're African-American dudes. Truth always wears like a hoodie, but they do good work. And I've invited many people that are on my Facebook to go and join their group, because Truth and Bass do a good job of putting really good stuff out there in that group so you can read, because they're very awake, not woke, awake. Okay. Like we all should be, in this community. I think that our audience is probably the most awake. And unfortunately, there is an active part of this community that's being extremely pushing back hard, because they wanted to take a religious flair that I'm not comfortable with, that I think that we need to take a look at things objectively, and not just, box ourselves into the parameter of one type of religion. And I don't mean by Christianity. What I mean is like one type of Christianity. Like, they're very specific, like what they want. It's not, they're not even wanting you to be a part of the other Christianity. You just got to be what they like. And so that's unfortunate. And it's just like a couple dudes. Well, it's just one, really, when it comes to that, it's really just one guy and a bunch of females that had banded together to say, hey, we're going to boycott you because you're not doing what we want. And that's unfortunate, man. And then Miguel says, shout out PRT family. Don't think that that's a coincidence with the email. Sounds like either AI or NSA don't want you talking about this. Yeah, that's exactly. Thank you for that donation, Kid Flash and Miguel. You got to wonder, because so this story here, this is when it was first given to, I believe, Armando and Tony were the ones working on it, because we kind of paired off. Me and Scorpion were working together. My brother was working with Anthony, and then Armando was working with Tony. So we did this kind of pairing off thing, and then Nelly was getting things independently. And then we had Chief working with us too a little bit, who was doing some field investigating down in South Texas. But he was the only one going out into the field down in South Texas doing that because he volunteered. Armando was going out into the field with Tony. And I wasn't going out into the field and meeting people on their property. except a few times when we were in those particular areas, like in Giddings, Brenham, and then when we were up near Waxahachie at one point, and then, of course, Hernandez Ranch. And I believe it was like me, Anthony, Scorp, and D. We went out there and we did some looking around. And Nellie was with me on a few occasions. We went out to Werewolf Church. So it was kind of funny when I look back on it. I did the math, and we did about 24 investigations of different properties. I did less than the other guys did, but if you took all of theirs and all of us together, it was well over like 50 different places that we went to as a team, as a whole. But yet we weren't calling it boots on the ground because we weren't filming on the location and showing you, and then we weren't walking around and throwing rocks and pretending like it was Bigfoot like this other dumbass idiot. So we don't do that. Like, we didn't do that kind of crap. So, you know, we were like being labeled as like, oh, armchair researchers. And that really wasn't fair. That was another thing that aggravated Armando, because they were going out into the field. You know, when you took him and Scorpion D, myself, Zane, Nelly, Chief, you know, everybody that was going out and doing this stuff, there were about, I'd say at least a couple dozen that I was involved in, and a few dozen altogether. And I wasn't going to these haunted places because I didn't want an attachment, which is something that we talked about on Blondes and Booze when Chris Garitano was on there last Thursday. And then the Thursday before that, we had Eric Palacios from Media Palace on, and Eric was talking about all these different ghosts and cryptids and things from Central Texas. There was a whole lot of it. We talked about a whole lot of it, but the same thing goes. You know, he doesn't want to be somewhere where he's going to get an attachment. Neither do I. But we are planning on, there's 3 places right now that we're talking about trying to go and do. Yeah, Brother Hex says, I don't like the term boots on the ground, since that term originates from active military members out serving in war zones. Kind of gives off stolen valor vibes. Yeah, I don't. When I started seeing that hashtag boots on the ground, it was the lady that thinks she can remote view everything. It was like that. And they kept saying, I stand with her in my chat or in my group. And I was like, what is this? And so they were up in arms because I had said something about wandering around in the woods with no direction isn't going to help you find anything. It's not. I stand by that. I mean, like, I haven't backed down from that. I mean, a lot of these people too, like, you know, just walk around your backyard. Oh, look, I'm over here in the middle of the woods. Let me throw a rock. I mean, you know, it's really what it is. I mean, there are certain people who do real boots on the ground that go out into the woods and do things. And then there's people who wander around their property in Oklahoma and throw a rock and say it's Bigfoot. That was the distinction that I tried to make. But I don't, even though all the places that we visited and we interviewed people, and we were in some pretty creepy places, I never once said I was boots on the ground. And we didn't really like video it, even though we had our phones. It was like in the early days, especially, we didn't really think to do that. We were just like, well, we're going to check it out and see what it looks like so we get a feel for it, and then we'll retell the encounter. And it was only if it was somewhere close by. The farthest we went was Lake Texoma up in Oklahoma when we were up there, and we drove through it. So, oh, and then when in New Mexico too, we did some looking around out there. In particular, we went to the reservation, the Mescalero Reservation. We were out in New Mexico, so Ruidoso, yeah. Some weird thing happened to us too when we were out there. Me and Anthony saw like a white stag, which was incredible. It was completely white. It jumped out in front of our vehicle. So you have these different places and things that we went to and that we looked into and we did, but we never really bragged about it and we didn't talk about it. So people were firing off on me, and some of the people that knew that I had gone out and done stuff were telling me to use that to say something back. And I'm like, at that time, I was like, I didn't look at these people and take them seriously. I was like, what do I care what they say or do? I don't give a crap. I mean, so we got a story going way back, and this was one of the first we got involving the black goo. And in fact, from what I can see on the date, it is the first story we got from the black goo, because the date of this was like late May of 2019. So this was our first correspondence, and she doesn't say anything about the black goo. The first time she says anything about the black goo was later, like almost a month later in June. And then I looked back, I backtracked, and I saw another email that had said, hey, I got a story to tell you that it's pretty crazy, blah, blah, blah. And it involved Bigfoot type creature with extraterrestrial undertones. And so when I looked in the email, I looked at the email from June, literally the last day of June, June 30th, I believe it was. And I was like, hey, Barton, didn't see you there. What's going on? I haven't seen you in the chat lately. So what happened was I looked at this email and I read it and I was like, holy crap. So I showed Tony and I said, hey man, do you remember this? Because you and Armando were working together. We had all kind of teamed up and paired off, whatever. And we were doing different work. And so he said, yeah, I remember, that email, whatever. And so I had a conversation with this woman, and Zane was actually, it was him and Tony, and we were all talking to her, and I was driving, and I'll never forget, she mentioned something about black goo. Now, I had only heard of the black goo. I hadn't gotten any stories at that time. None. I had nothing about the black goo that I could remember. And one of the first people I talked to about this black substance was David Weatherly. Hold on one second, folks. Hold on one second. Do not go anywhere because I'm about to get... And I'm back. So I got this story from this lady, and it kind of opened my mind, opened my eyes. And like I said, she lived up in Nova Scotia, which is like far eastern Canada. And she was saying that what she saw when she was a child, she said that her and her family, they lived out in the middle of nowhere. And she said that now she's like, I think she's like 60 something years old, like 66, 67 years old. I did the math best I could. And she said that she had an encounter with her dad when they were driving home from her grandmother's house, who lived even further out in the middle of nowhere. And she said that it was late spring and it was starting the weather was starting to get warmer and nicer. It's really, really cold up there. And it's, she was so glad that it was almost summer. She was going to be out of school and enjoy the warm weather. Kids like summer, even though a lot of adults don't. I don't like summer. It's too damn hot, especially down here. It's too damn hot. It's too damn hot anywhere. But anyway, she said that we were driving along and we see this, what looks like a shooting star, like a comet, go over the sky. And she said that it had this long tail on it too. And it was bluish green. And she said, I couldn't believe it. I said, look, Dad, a shooting star. And he looks up and he sees it and he goes, wow, it is. She's like, and then about 5 minutes go by and we're both just really quiet. She's like, and then the next thing you know, it's daylight. And we're pulling into our driveway. And she's like, we go inside and we're just like, I'm exhausted. She goes, and then I realized my shirt is on backwards. And she was like, whoa, what the heck? And she goes inside and her dad was like, just went and laid down on the bed and just went to sleep, just like crashed out on the bed with his boots on. And she said that, oh, Barton, I'm sorry to hear that. I heard about Letitia. Yes. I just read that earlier today. And so everybody pray for Letitia. Also, please pray for Nellie. Her back is so messed up. She's been in bed. And that's weird that Letitia hurt her ankle because my left ankle has been hurting so much. I was supposed to work out last night. I couldn't. And I've been not able to put a lot of pressure on it. So I couldn't get anything done yesterday. I couldn't hardly walk. I managed to walk up the stairs to the studio, and walking on the way back down, I was putting so much pressure on my other leg that it kind of strained my knee. So I don't know what's going on with my ankle, but just please, maybe it's sympathy for the Nunleys. I don't know, but my ankle's messed up. Letitia, high ankle sprain on hers from what I read. So please pray for her. Pray for Nellie. And pray for me that my ankle gets better too. And pray for Barton, all the stress we've been under. So what ended up happening with this this person, and I'll call her Shelly, she was like in shock. She goes, my mother and my dad were separated at that time. And my mother, and it's not like I shouldn't admit, her mother had some issues. She had some mental health problems and she drank a lot. So her dad and her had split up. So her mother had gone to live with her mom. And her the youngest brother or whatever was actually living with the grandparents at that time because the dad worked all the time. She's like, I was a little bit older and I could be left alone like a latchkey kid, but I couldn't take care of Timothy, my little brother. So little Tim had to go live with the grandparents, and it was a time of change and heartache, as she put it. And so what ended up happening, she goes to sleep, but she's laying in bed, and immediately she starts having these nightmares. And these nightmares involve these beings. These beings with these big black eyes. And she's like, and they were stereotypical gray aliens. She's like, at the time I was a kid, I didn't know much about it. See, this was 1972 when this happened. And she said, I was a kid. I didn't know what I was dealing with, like kid being, like early teens, whatever. She's like, and I was going through a lot of changes in my life, trying to wrap my mind around, all these different changes with my mom and with my body, everything. She was, I couldn't handle it. And she's like, I was absolutely terrified of whatever this was. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. And she said that, over the years, she said that I learned to deal with it, with this, what was to come. And I can't remember if she said she was 14 or 15, I think, when this. Anyway, she was in her early to mid-teens, whatever. But she said that, when she was 15, which would have been shortly after this incident, she said, I'll never forget, it was the day after my birthday. My family had come and everybody, and we're blowing out the candles on the cake. She's like, and I go outside to play. She's like, and the next thing you know, I'm waking up and I'm in the hospital. They said that you had a seizure, a massive seizure. She nearly died. And she's like, and the next day, she was going home from the hospital. And once again, her and her dad, she's like, it was like 7 p.m. The next thing you know, we're waking up. I'm in the car and it's 4 a.m. The hospital where we went wasn't even an hour away. She's like, so how the hell did this happen? What caused that? And she said that was when she knew 100% something was wrong. There was something else at play here. It wasn't her mental and physical health that was doing these things. It was an outside source. Something was causing these things to happen. And she was determined to get to the bottom of it. So one night she had a dream, another one of these dreams where these weird gray creatures were coming into her room. And she remembers waking up on what she claimed was a ship. She knew it was a ship because when she got up, when there was nobody in the room, which is we've heard 100 times there, she walks up to this big window and she can see all the stars and she sees the earth like below. But it just looked, and I'm not saying this is the flat earth because people are going to freak out and go, oh, you sure it's a flat earth. I'm going to get attacked by the dummies for that. But she said that it was just like at a slant. And so what she saw of the earth, she goes, and in her mind, she's not a flat earther. She just thought she was close to the earth so she could see it, but it was like at an angle, it looked flat, but like, at an angle. Yeah, Red Viking Princess. Some people believe it is. Some people believe it's not. I'm going to reserve because I don't know. It's just like the whole thing that we've talked about with the Anunnaki word that this one guy has just beat the drum about to death. It's not. I don't know. Okay, those are theories that people can postulate on all they want. Okay, But I don't say that this is 100% what I believe or what I think because I don't know. If I had the answers, I would tell you. Okay, so I'm leaving that as an open. You know, people can believe what they want. But this is what she said, and she said that she knew that something was wrong, and she was like scared to death. She said she began to shake violently, and it was the beginning of a long series of anxiety and panic attacks that began when she learned that she was an abductee. Now, I asked her, I said, that day that you saw the shooting star, you seem to think that that's the first time that this ever happened. I was like, but is it possible, just maybe, that this isn't the first time you were abducted? And she's like, I thought about it because I had not witnessed missing time to that degree. She's like, but I did have a weird incident where I saw a UFO when I was like 7. And she's like, she couldn't believe, like, she was sitting there playing and this thing just came spinning, and it was a black disc, and it came down to where her and her friends were, and they all took off riding on their bikes. They were out in the woods. And she said that, I don't know what that was, but it was not her first go around with something that could have been, alien, whatever. So what she had said what ended up happening, she says, one day I was out in the backyard and there was a pond not too far from our house, and my dad took me there to go fish. And as I got a little older, he would let me go by myself. My dad was pretty protective of me, but he was it was the 70s, and he would let her be, and so he made sure that I understood about things. And if we had a gun in the house, she said, and if somebody came into the house, I knew where it was at and how to use it. She's like, it's very important. So this is something that she says that she had to deal with. Was her dad. As time went on, he became more and more paranoid because he thought that people were messing with them and coming into their house at night. Somebody was breaking in and moving stuff around. I asked her about that too, if her house was haunted. She said yes. She said that there were a couple incidents, in particular when this is weird, whenever the abductions were beginning to ramp up, that there were some weird things that happened. She saw what looked like a bluish, like, oblong ball, as she called it. Like, it was a ball and it elongated, and this woman that looked like she's from the 1800s, like, walked through and then went through a wall. So that was weird. There's always this other sort of stuff that goes on, when it comes to these kind of events. Now, the thing that she started to notice when she went fishing was that she was hearing this whooping, hollering noise from the woods. She had heard this her whole life as a child, and she never knew what it was. Doesn't matter if you back the love of Christ. The one thing that's really matters. So what ended up happening, and this hooping and hollering is going on, and so she ends up having to go inside. She gets so afraid. She's like, it's about 200 yards from our house, and so I just started making the walk back to the house. She's like, you could see the house kind of up on a hill, sloping upward. And she said that the hooping got louder and progressively more aggressive. Now, I asked her what she meant by that. She said it sounded like it was getting closer. And she goes, and it sounded scary. And hold on one second. If you put anything in your mouth, you should pray over it. I'm sure the atheist detractors will be all over that one. The critical thinkers. So what ended up happening, she heard this hooping noise, whooping, whatever, she called it whooping. And she didn't know at the time, but that was a Sasquatch sound. That was what that was making that. As she began to walk back to the house, she hears something splash in the water, and she looks back, and she sees this 9-foot tall, hairy being with light-colored hair. And she said that the color of the hair was different than a lot of times you hear about brown, black, red, chocolate. Well, this one was a light brown, not blonde, but very light-colored. And she's like, she looked back and saw this creature like kind of wading through the pond going towards her. And so she began to run. She dropped her fishing pail and tackle and her rod and took off. And she's like, and I get back up to the top of the hill. My dad was at work, but my grandfather was there. My grandmother had gone to town to get groceries. I didn't want to go. And she said that as this stuff was going on, more and more she wasn't being left alone because her dad was freaked out and becoming extremely paranoid. But she said that she appreciated that he went out of his way to either have his aunt or her aunt, I should say, his sister. He would drop her off with her, or she would stay with her grandparents when he had to work like a lot of days in a row. And so she goes up to the top of the hill and she tells her grandfather. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Her grandfather did not balk. He was not like, oh my gosh, what is that? Oh, you're just being a kid. No. He grabbed a rifle and he went straight outside. And he goes, where is it? And she said, down there by the lake. It's a glorified pond. And so he goes down the hill and he looks, doesn't see anything. He goes back and he tells her, he says, look, there are things that exist in these woods around here. You need to be very careful. And he told her, don't go into the woods. Just don't do it. There's been a lot of activity going on lately and just a lot of weird things. Just don't do it. So when the grandmother came home, she was upstairs. She heard them talking. And he talked to the grandmother, his wife, very frankly, very openly. And he was very just to the point. You know, I mean, it wasn't a real long conversation. It was just pretty, blunt. She saw one of these things. Whenever she mentioned this to her dad just kind of brushed it off. Come on, man. Kidding me? Hold on one second. So, the work stuff. Her dad kind of brushed it off like it was hey, when I was a kid, I saw one of these things too. I was like 9 foot tall, but it was black and hairy. And it looked feminine, the one he saw. And the one she saw definitely was male. And so they compared notes and they were just kind of brushed it off, whatever. He said, as far as I know, they don't really hurt anybody. I mean, I've heard them in the woods. I think that that's what they are, making this noise. I'm not really afraid of them, but don't take any chances. Don't go out in the woods by yourself. Blah, 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 blah. So when she got a little older, she was out with one of her friends. She didn't have her driver's license yet, but her friend Katie did. And so when her and Katie were driving along, this creature runs out in front of their vehicle, looks at them, stops for a second, and then leaps across the road. And she said, oh my gosh, we just saw a werewolf. And she said, I was 15. She said, this was literally 2 months after I'd seen that Bigfoot type creature. And she's like, up to this point in time, I hadn't seen any of this stuff. She's like, and I didn't remember what must have been going on prior to that, which was the abductions, until I saw that comet or whatever it was. She's like, looking back on it, though, I don't think it was a comet. I think it was like an orb, flying across the sky. And she thinks that now, knowing what she knows, that these creatures come out of these orbs. When she got older, she said there was a period where everything stopped, that she don't remember anything from happening from the time she was 17 till she was 21. She said there again, a couple days after my 21st birthday, this stuff would happen around her birthdays. And she said that she was full on abducted. She said that this time she was fully conscious. And what was even weirder about this abduction was that it was a spiritual abduction. It was one of those where she was being taken through the wall and she looked back and she could see her body. But when she ended up in either aboard a craft or, like I told her, a possible facility, she said that she was there at a table and she was talking to other people and they were just discussing like their situations, what they did for a living, what their day-to-day lives were. She's like, and there were these beings on all four corners of this rectangular room. And she's like, and they looked weird. They looked like the gray aliens, but mixed with like something else that made them look almost reptilian. And so I kind of was like, okay, I've heard of stuff like this. Then she tells me, she's like, this scenario, she's like, went on and on and on. She's like, it was like exhausting. She goes, we would start to fall asleep and then they would wake us up and we were just told to keep conversating. And it's like they were recording everything so they could observe what we were doing and saying and how we were interacting with one another. She's like, it felt like that. And I said, that's probably because that's what it was. That's what they were doing. And then she said that they were taken into another room. And of course, when I interviewed Jesus Payan with Barton, this is one of the things he told us, that they made them do like these calisthenics, like they were doing exercises and stuff and monitoring their hearts and things like that. And they had this weird like little device that they were checking, and they were watching them, and they would, this green like weird like laser would go across their face and body. And she's like, they would do this little weird thing with this triangle on their heart. She's like, it was bizarre. And she's like, and then we were all put in these little rooms by ourselves, in pairs. And then we would talk. And she's like, and then we were told to basically conversate, and we just would start up conversation. She's like, I was with this other girl who was black girl. And she's like, and then her and I were taken out and we were walked down the hallway. But then there was this like alarm or something that started going, me, 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 me. And there was a bunch of these little gray people that were in suits that looked like soldiers, and they started running in the direction of something. And the ones that were with us, they turn around, they had this weird little device with these two rods coming off of it, and they pointed it at them and told them to stay put. She's like, and for a moment, she's like, we couldn't move. We were just stuck. And then she said, all of a sudden we could move again. And so we just sat there with our backs to the wall and just looking down. I was looking down, and I look over, and the girl that I was with was looking down. She's like, we were both like feeling, I could tell that the feeling, she's like, I'm very empathic, and I could feel her fear and her depression on her, anxiety. And so she says, I felt terrible for her. I was going through the same thing. So I started talking to her, and I said, look, let's find a way out of here. She's like, we can't. We're up in space. She's like, we're not in space. We're in some sort of facility. And that's what I had told her even earlier on in the story. I said, I thought that that's what it was. The first place she was at, that she remembers, put it that way, because this went on and on and on, but it was you only remember part of it, right? So then she ends up, they go down a hallway and they go into this like, oh no, wait, that's a different, I was about to say something else. This is a different one. This is a guy that did this. He goes into like a chow hall or whatever, and it was weird what he saw. But that's what this wasn't her story. I was getting it confused. So they go down this long hall, and then as they walk by this one door, it just opens up, like it goes up, and they walk inside of it. And she's like, and I don't know what we were doing. We were trying to find a way out, but we just went inside. And she goes, and there, lying in a giant tray, was this being. She's like, and when we walked over to it and we looked at it, we could tell it was lifeless. It wasn't alive. And she's like, but it was like this werewolf-looking creature, but without a lot of fur. She's like, if that makes sense. And I said, yeah, kind of. And she said that we were staring at it, and she goes, and my friend that I was standing there with was like, had her arms, crossed, and she was terrified. And she's like, and I don't know what inspired me to do this. She goes, but I stuck my finger in to touch it, and it was sitting in this like black liquid. And the liquid looked like a very like watery sauce, you know? She's like, but as soon as I touched it, she's like, that black liquid all flew up and latched onto my finger and then started making its way up my arm. She goes, and it felt like that slime that you play with as a kid, you know? She's like, talking about her sons had this like slime that they played with or whatever when they were little. And she said that it was messed up. She's like, I don't know what that was. And she goes, and I kept pulling and trying to get it off of me. And the whole time there's this creature. She's like, and I saw it like twitch and move, but I saw the black sauce goo, whatever, coming out of its mouth and going down over its stomach. And then she's like, and it was starting to envelop this creature. And I noticed in the goo that there were like what looks like hair. And it was like literally like before my eyes, I could see it dissolving. So like the fur or whatever was being eaten by this goo. And she's like, and I don't know what it was. And it was on my hand. And so the friend, the girl that I was with, she's like, she started pulling me and trying to get it to let go of me. And eventually it did. And then it was like just kind of up. And she said it was up like almost like a hand, but like 4 fingers on a hand. And then it just went back down into the tray. And she said that we got terrified and we tried to get out of there. So we ran to the front door and the door was not opening. There was no buttons or anything. She's like, so there must have been some sort of way to open these without buttons. They didn't use buttons. And so she's like, we just sat there terrified. And then we started noticing that the creature on the tray started to shake. And then she's like, it sat up like boom, like it was up. And it had completely black eyes. There was nothing, it says here, phantoms and black goo could talk any biological shape. Oh, yeah. And thank you for that donation, Chris. Cult dues. But this thing, it sat bolt upright and it was like, had black eyes. She goes, and then it started to move its legs and started to get off of this tray that it was sitting in. She's like, and then the tray flipped over and was on the ground. And she's like, and I noticed there was no black goo. There was none of it. She's like, and my guess was that it was all inside of this creature's body. And so this thing had like really black skin, like really dark skin. And it looked kind of like grayish, ashy in certain points, like the knees, the elbows, different spots. And it had like a weird scar on its face. And she's like, and it looked like something that was living a very rough life, like something that you would see in the woods, And she said that it looked like a werewolf. She said it wasn't overly large. It was probably 6 foot, and it was kind of scrawny, but it had big, thick thighs, like legs. And then they tapered down into these backward bent like type legs. And she said that this was the most terrifying thing she's ever seen in her entire life. She said that it kind of turned its head in different ways. And then it was just like, and then it let out this weird noise, like a howl, but it was like warped. It wasn't like, how you would think like a werewolf would be like, like that. She's like, no. She's like, it was like, and it was like, it was trying to make noise, but something was wrong with it. And she said that it had these big ears. And she said, and the steps that it took was like something was controlling it. And she's like, I can only think that it was probably this black goo that was inside of this thing. Saying that, she said that this thing was probably being controlled by whatever that was a sentient thing. That juice, that sauce, that goo was actually, I don't know. Let's see here real quick. So she said that whatever that black goo was definitely in control of this being. She said that the thing was moving unnatural. And she had never seen one of these things move around, right? Now, up to that point, she had seen one of these things run across the road and jump, and looked very natural and moved very fluid. She said this thing looked like it was parasitized. And she believed, even at that young age, that it was from this goo, whatever it was. And so she said that when she was 21, she started having these abduction scenarios that were happening more frequently. She says, as this thing moved closer and closer toward her, all of a sudden it just fell over, like it just went dead. And this black goo began to ooze out of it. And then the door opened and these beings came in, and she turned and she saw this like taller being that was what I would call the mantid creatures. And it was like this giant praying mantis headed looking being. And there were these two smaller, like reptoid looking grays. And they grabbed her and her friend, and they took them and moved them into different places, and they put them in a bed in different cells. And they, not cells with bars, but like, little rooms where they were locked in. And then the next thing you know, she's waking up, and she's like, it was like it was a dream, the way she remembered it. And she was like, what the hell? What's going on? So she started going to a counselor to talk about these things. And the counselor had apparently gone through alien abduction. So she said, look, she's like, I'm not supposed to tell you this or, whatever, but she's like, what you've gone through. She's like, I've lived in this area. And she's like, and I have seen some of the things you've seen. And I'm going to give you the number to someone who can do regression. And she's like, and I'm going to quit being your counselor and start talking and being your friend, because I can't do and say the things I need to do and say as a counselor, but I can if I'm your friend. And thank you for that, Sugar Bitches, for the Kool-Aid. It's getting a little low. So yeah, thank you to everybody who's donated and helped out. We greatly appreciate it. So what ended up happening, this thing goes on and on and on, for like 2 years straight. From the time she was 21 till she was 23, it was like happening every couple of months. And she said it was, you couldn't remember most of it. But then at one point, she was jogging through the woods, and she'd gotten to where she was sick of it. She wasn't going to be afraid. She didn't care if she saw one of these Bigfoot, Dogman creatures. She didn't give a damn. She was just like, I'm done with the fear. There is no fear. I'm not going to live my life like this. I don't care. And she said that she began to have these nightmares, like waking nightmares, where she would, like visions, I guess, but she called them waking nightmares. And she would see this black goo, like her dad would be laying on the couch, and and this black goo would start seeping out of his eyes and coming out of his nose and out of his mouth, out of his ears. And then it would crawl around the house, chasing her around. And so eventually her dad got really sick, and he started having problems remembering things. He started having all kinds of issues. And she said that he got diagnosed with brain cancer. And it was sad. She's like, my dad was only like 50 years old, and then he was diagnosed. And she's like, and then within 2 years, he was gone. And she goes, and I remember dreaming that right after my dad had passed, that he had crawled out of his grave, and he was trying to give her a message. And he says, beware of the blackness. And she was like, what? Like she couldn't, and he would tell her that, beware of the dark, beware of the black. But he wasn't calling it goo. And she said that one day she was in the house, and she was crying. She had cried herself to sleep. And her grandparents, she was getting ready to go stay with her grandparents, and they were going to sell the house. And she said, I go into the kitchen. I was going to wash the dishes and put them all away, and then let them dry, and then try to box them up and pack. And she said that I go into the kitchen, and I look, and as I'm staring at this dirty water, whatever, it was like a dark, dirty water. Thank you for the donation, Spilling Tea. We appreciate it. And she said that there was this dark, dingy water in there, you know, like from not washing dishes. She's like, we hadn't washed the dishes in 2 weeks. My dad was in the hospital. And then there was the you know, and then he passed and then the funeral. But she said that she was go to stick her hand in it, and this bubbling came up out of the drain. And it was like black sludge, and it was thick. And it began to crawl all over the dishes, and she backed up and was like, oh, what the heck? And so she thought she would try something that she had not tried before. And that was to hit it with fire. She said, I literally was at a friend's house and I watched this movie, The Thing. And she asked me if I'd seen it. And I said, yeah, of course. John Carpenter, yeah. And she said that, so what I did, she's like, I took hairspray and a lighter and I sprayed that with that. And that stuff shot up and then went straight back down into the drain. And the dirty, murky water was gone with it. And she's like, and then I was terrified. And then I decided to take all the dishes. I had rubber gloves and I threw them into a bag and I threw them out into the trash. I was like, I'm not washing these. I'm not doing anything with these. She's like, and then I told my grandparents about what was going on. And there again, my grandfather and grandmother didn't even balk about it. And I said, I'm just leaving most of the stuff here. It can stay with the house. Okay. And so they made that decision. They were just going to leave it there. They weren't going to take it with them. And when she moved to go live with her grandparents, who lived about 40 miles away, she said, that's when I started to realize that this was not just a localized thing that was around my dad's house. She's like, no, this was something that was going on everywhere I went. She's like, I couldn't get away from it. I couldn't escape it. All right, Spill and Tea, we'll see you. So she said that that this was something that was happening at her grandparents' house. That she was laying there in bed one night, and she said that I hear this noise out in the yard, and it sounded like something attacking my grandparents' dog, Roscoe. And so she says, I opened the door, or I opened the window, whatever, or Bosco, sorry, his name was Bosco. And she's like, and he was outside, but he was a Boston Terrier. And Bosco shouldn't have been out there. And she said it was weird. She's like, he shouldn't have been outside. My grandparents were asleep. He was an inside dog. And so I literally look out the window and I see him fighting with this big shape, this big mass, which I couldn't make out what it was. So I go out and I run out there. I run out into the porch, the backyard porch. And I'm like, get away from him, get away from him. And she's like, and I had this axe. And I went and I started to swing it at this, what I thought was a dog attacking Bosco. She's like, and then it turns out, whatever this was, it turned, looked at me, and it was like this shapeless mass that formed into what looked like a werewolf type creature. And it lunged at me. And she said, and literally I plunged this axe into its chest, and it kind of stopped and turned and was like kind of moving around. And it was pulling on it and pulling on it. And when it pulled it loose, she's like, I hit it hard, right in its sternum. But she said it had this weird kind of rounded chest, kind of like how if a dog actually just stood up on its hind legs. It wasn't this big upper body, bodybuilder, Dogman looking thing. It was like a kind of rangy, scrawny looking thing, like if a dog had arms, like the upper legs turned into arms, and it still had the little rounded barrel chest of the canine. And so she said, I stuck it in there, and then it pulled out, and this goo, the black stuff came and dripping out of it. And she was thinking, this has got to be a bad dream. I'm dreaming. This is one of these lucid dreams, these weird, scenarios. She's like, and then I ran to turn and I run and I trip on the porch and I hit my knee so hard I thought I broke it. But this thing was like getting its bearings and coming at me. So she's like, so I crawled and I got up and I scrambled into the house and I kicked the door closed. She's like, and I got up and I locked the door for what good it would do. And then she's like, and then I grabbed a chair and threw it up against the door, and this thing banged on the door enough to where the noise woke up my grandparents. And then I look, and there is Bosco. He comes running out of the bedroom, and he's barking, running in circles. And I'm like, what the hell? I just saw him in the backyard with this thing, whatever. And she said that her grandfather had his gun, basically a shotgun, and was like, to step back, I'm going to deal with this. And he opens the door and he goes to fire at it, and there's nothing there. Nothing was there. So at this point, I think she said she was 24 or something like that, or 23. And she said that this was like the most terrifying incident that she had ever experienced. Not the most horrific. She said the most horrific thing she'd ever seen was that weird goo animated werewolf with no hair walking around like a puppet on that ship. But she said that this, so when you stop and you start digesting all of this, which is a weird word to use when you're talking about the black goo. Hold on one second. Hmm. So 1 second, folks. Okay. Give me a second. It's work stuff I got to deal with. I'm sorry, man. How do these people not know their schedule, dude? I'm telling you. It's aggravating. You tell somebody exactly what they're supposed to do, and they're like, oh, I don't know, I'm supposed to do that. They have the retardation. It is one of the side effects of being a dumb human. Whatever. Yeah, Shade Viking says Black Goo is new to me. Never heard of it until Wolf shows lately. It's like a new Dogman fan. Just look it up, man. There's a bunch of stuff about it. When I first started getting stories of this, and this actually was the first person that had ever talked about it, and I didn't know. I had no idea that this was, I traced it back to this first story, but there was going to be a lot more people talking about slime and goo and whatever. And the black goo thing is just really weird. It's a really bizarre thing. I don't know how to describe it. Like how it just kind of like people started talking about it, and then it just took off, and all these people started coming forward and saying, and I like to believe that we here at PRT are at the forefront of a lot of the when people start getting their stories. Like I said, there was this Spanish Inquisition going on when I started doing this, and you were not supposed to. I mean, these people were bastards, dude. I mean, they were bastards. I can say bastard enough. Just sorry ass bastards. They would not allow you, if you were, all the Christians that are able to say and do the things they're doing now, you were not given a voice. You were not given a voice. Funny how they're attacking me now when I'm one of the ones that really opened the door for the discussion of what this could be, and even bringing God into the equation, because the people that held sway, there was a pack of them, and they kind of ran the Dogman thing, and it was like they had an agenda. They had a certain belief, and it was this Dogman is a flesh and blood creature. That's what it is. There is no black goo associated with it. There is no alien connection. There is no in earth connection. There is no religious connection. There is nothing. It is just an evolutionary creature that exists. And some of them went so far as to change the names of their groups to stupid crap like the creature, the animal known as Dogman. All right, dumbass. How many animals do you know that walk around on their hind legs mimicking people It's not a freaking animal with a canine head. It was the dumbest crap ever. And there was this one guy that I'm not even going to say his name, but he was one of the worst. He had a stupid show, and it was terrible. It was just and all they did was sit in this group and mess with people who dare deviate from it. And if anybody were to speak out about any of these things, you couldn't even get close to this subject because they would just assault you. I mean, I'm not joking. They would verbally abuse you. And one of them, this guy was interviewing one of the ladies, and she started talking about some of this other stuff. And he started cussing her out on air. I'm not joking. I don't know how many of you remember that and know who I'm talking about. His name started with a C, and he cussed at this lady on air. I heard it. I was sitting there. I was like, oh, my gosh, dude. But then somebody told me that he did stuff while he was on the air, too, and was all out of his mind. So, but they were so determined to make people believe this crazy narrative because they wanted to be taken seriously, and they were trying to get approval from like the Bigfoot community, I guess, so they could be like the apers. They wanted to be like the apers. And I'm like, wow, you're aspiring to get approval from them? Like that's your thing? Like that's, you know? So I laughed about that. I was like, that's ridiculous, man. And so, you know, eventually I went all in on them because they just wouldn't stop. And as the more I questioned them, there was one in particular, the Dogman whisperer, who just, he went all in on me. It was 100% Josh Turner, the enemy, torpedo him before he leads others out of this dungeon of despair. And it was too late. It was too late. It was a done deal. We were not going to sit back and let them control the narrative and spin their ridiculous lie where they just do what a lot of these people do and run around in circles in an echo chamber. That's where you don't get anything done. Just the black spiral, running around in the black spiral. And that's what they did. And so D. True says, makes you wonder if Venom movies are soft disclosure. Yeah. I wondered that about Venom just back in '89 when I was a kid, the Venom thing, you know, with the comic books. And Venom's one of my favorite characters, you know, and I don't think about it as in terms of like that black goo. It's like this alien symbiote that attaches itself. But that makes sense. And who knows what they might have known already before making that character. But those people seem to be gone now. They're like, they've all fallen by the wayside. Used to, every time anybody would pipe up and say anything about me, they'd show up in a little pack like this terrible trio that are doing what they're doing now. They would just show up in a little group and attack. And eventually they just, I guess they lost interest in me and they went away and did whatever, or maybe Dogman ate them. I don't know. But they didn't show up at all that I saw during this last war. And this last war went on for months. It was just a Brutus Judas backstabbery from some of my own people because they saw an opportunity and took it. Which, by the way, they're all hanging out now with AI. So good luck to you guys. I'm glad that you showed your true colors, and well, you're back where you belong. And that's probably where you started at to begin with. You know, Perry, the roofie guy, he's over there hanging out with AI. He's their buddy. Talks bad to anybody who will listen. Thank you, Eric, for that. We hope that everybody has a great night. But the thing is, you know, why it's important, though, that you know this is because we fought to be able to talk about these things without being attacked or ridiculed or made fun of, because this is what is happening. And these are the stories that we were given. And I promise you, I did not take this story and bury it because of fear of ridicule or anything like that. I had too much going on. Rhonda says, did you get my email? Rhonda, I hope so. If you resend it, probably, yeah, because I mean, I got so many that I'm trying to do. And if you're in the chat and you sent me an email and I need to look at it, if I haven't told your encounter or story yet, then please be patient. Please be patient because I am backed up. That's why I'm doing so many shows right now. And I'm hoping that I'm not oversaturating. And then we end up not being able to get everybody's, you know, encounters out there. That's another thing, because I mean, not that everybody that kind of is out there, but people that they don't listen to it because they're so backed up, they might skip the last 2 or 3 live streams because they're backed up. So don't forget, we've done a live stream Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then today. So Thursday, Friday, 2 on Saturday, that's 4, and then Sunday, and then today. So 6 in 5 days, the live streams. And we're doing this because I'm trying to get caught up, and there's things you need to know. The black goose subject is one of them that's very pivotal. I think it's important. Bless you, whoever sneezed. Sarah Jane says, Wolf, I say this in all honesty, genuinely and humbly, your encounter coupled with your intelligence has put you here to help all those people who have been disserviced, and your show is proof in the pudding. Yeah. It was the short shape-shifting Hyoka encounter. Oh, okay. I think I did get that one, Rhonda. I will flesh that one out. And let me get with you about that one. That sounded very interesting. That's an interesting one. I'm definitely going to try to get to that one. Jason. He tries to say I made him my sworn enemy. No, dude, you made me your sworn enemy. I didn't make you the enemy. I didn't go, oh, I'm going to pick this goofy redneck to be my enemy. You know, him and his buddy up there in Oklahoma, they chose me. I didn't choose them. That sounds so ridiculous when you go around telling people that I chose to make you my enemy. Okay, you're giving yourself way too much credit, dude. I don't give a shit about, there's a million of you. Okay, I don't care. You're just the latest dipshit that's decided to wage war in the name of the devil and calling it good. Dragon Paul, you sent UFO encounters? And Brother Heck, you had a shape-shifting encounter? There's a bunch of them. You would not believe how many people out there, a lot of them in this chat, who have heard noises, seen things in their house, seen spirits walk through walls, have been abducted, have seen Dogman, Bigfoot. That's why they're here. Seen something shapeshift into something else, something weird. That's what we're doing here. We're trying to uncover this. We're trying to get to the truth. But the closer we get to the truth, the more we get attacked. That's just how it goes, man. It's just what it is. We can always run away and just stick our head in the sand and pretend like nothing's happening. That would be the easy way out, wouldn't it? But unfortunately, we can't. It's not how life works. But so I'm going to have to jump off here in a few minutes because Tex is going live, or maybe he is live. Let me check. But I have more to say if you hang on just one second. But let me double check because I don't want to be cutting into his time. I try to be respectful of my fellow podcasters, YouTubers, and that's only right. Somebody told me the other day that whenever I go on, people leave other people's chats. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that guy. Doesn't matter whether you feel like you have more important things to say or not. They have things to say too. So we got to be polite. I think it's Danielle Diva's on right now. Okay, so text goes on at 8:15. So Danielle is on with Monica. Hold on one second. This could become interesting. Hang on. Just 1 second, folks. You got to answer this call. Sorry, and I ended up losing some people for that. So I don't want to step on toes. Tex is actually in Oklahoma, but apparently Danielle and Monica are on his channel. So I was thinking, I mean, we could always, if they're down, they could jump on with us, and we could go over some more of this stuff about the black goo, because it's a very interesting thing, and it is a building block episode that I needed to put in there, because that story from Shelley actually brings a lot together. It's something that I have talked about with many other researchers and podcasters and YouTubers and authors, what this black goo is and what it does. And I wonder, like, how much this substance has to do with the phenomena. Like, for example, if someone is like let's say this, if someone is like a skinwalker, is this black goo their blood? Does it take over their body? Is this the demonic element? And here's what I'm going to take it a step further. Please listen to what I'm going to tell you. Is the black goo the darkness? You see, Satan is just a title, right? That's a being that takes on the title of a shaitan, a devil, whatever. Lucifer is the name of an evil devil. The Zazel is another one. These are evil beings that rebelled, whatever. But what I'm going to tell you is this. They are not the antithesis to God. God is the light. God is not a man-like being, okay? God is just all of the energy that is good, concentrated into this light. That's what God is. He's not like us. He doesn't look like us. I promise you, we are not like God, okay? That is one of the most hubris things. That's one of the things that I have a problem with, is that people try to think, well, it's like, I'm made like God. No, you're not, okay? God is not like you. These beings have tricked you into believing that, because those beings want to believe that they are right up there with the creator, and they're not. They can create, but they're not God. All kinds of things we can create. We can clone people and sheep and all kinds of things, but we're not God. What I can tell you is this. These beings, though, that rebel against God, they think that they're the opposite of God. You're not. It's like standing in the stream and thinking you're going to make it run, the river, make the river run the opposite direction. You're not. And if you think that for a second that you're doing something like you're able to fight God or whatever. Some of these people are that stupid. They really are. What I'm telling you, though, is this evil, this darkness, this dark matter that scientists have even agreed, a lot of them anyway, the smart ones have agreed that there is something called dark matter that exists in our universe, and that it is absolute darkness that sucks light. This is the opposite of light. It is the absence of God. It is the darkness. God is the light. He is all that is good, and this goo, the black, it is all that is evil. It is absolutely evil. Yes, Joyce, you cannot fight God. They can try. If it's the God, the way that the Perry dishers of the world want to believe, yeah, then that God is like, he's angry, jealous, and makes mistakes and all this other stuff. That's the kind of God that he believes in. I don't believe in a God that does that. My God is super duper all powerful. He is the energy that of all that is. He is the Holy Spirit that moves through him and emanates from him. It is omnipotent. He doesn't need to rest. You would not need to create and then take a break, because you don't run out of energy. You're God. God doesn't do those things. He doesn't have those human characteristics that foolishly we put upon because we read that in some book a long time ago that somebody pushed on you. That is not what God is. I believe in God that Christ talks about. The one that doesn't need to go out and have people rip babies from their belly in war, like I read about on Saturday. I read the passages from the Bible to you. Take heed. Now, Jesus challenges us all that. Jesus says his Father is not their Father. His Father is the one that is all love, all powerful, all good. There is no evil in him. He doesn't have jealousy. Jealousy is evil. Envy comes from an evil place. Why would God, the ultimate good in the universe, say that I'm jealous? Ask yourself that question before you go pointing the finger at me and calling me satanic and all this other ridiculous crap. Why don't you look and see the people that are trying to teach you and take you down the right path? Yes, the truth, absolutely. And in the Old Testament, I read several passages from the Old Testament and in the New on Saturday's show, the night show. And I'll give you the coordinates to that. So that we can make sure that you find it. Now, if you're trying to navigate it and you go on your phone, what you do is you go to Paranormal Roundtable, hit that part right there, boom. And then that will take you to home, videos, shorts, and then live. Go to live, and then it'll show you the different episodes right there. And then if you just do videos, then it'll show you all the podcast episodes. So you go to live right there. A lot of people are asking, they don't know how to navigate it on their phone. And then it would be live stream number 246. It's got 3.9 thousand views. That's from Saturday. It's got the least views. But go check that out. And I read passages from the Bible. And it lays it out there pretty well. It doesn't make sense why God would tell anyone to do the things. And why would he say that I'm angry and I'm jealous and I'm all these other things? It makes no sense. God is the love, the light. He rejects you if you don't come to him in a purity that he can accept. That's the only thing. It's up to you. God doesn't do this punishing and all these other things, whatever. You make your own punishment. You bring the punishment yourself. He doesn't have to do those things. God is holy. He doesn't get his hands dirty doing that. It's not how it works. So in order for people to understand and grasp these situations, that is like important that you understand the words of Christ and what he's trying to tell you. Yeah, and Red Viking Princess, you said, I'm one with my Father, the great I am. There's different versions of that, so just be careful. I seek out Christ. I don't go to the Old Testament and try to find myself with the God of the Old Testament, because the God of the Old Testament has a bunch of different names for a reason. And a lot of people get real caught up in that. They don't understand it. They don't get it. And you're only getting part of the information, reason being the Council of Nicaea in 325. They took out a bunch of books in the Bible that were never put back in. And God is jealous for your own sake. No, he's not, Betsy. I'm sorry. That's not correct. I don't agree with that. God doesn't get jealous for my sake. No, he says, I am a jealous God. Yes, you're not supposed to worship other gods. But and see, this is what I'm talking about here. We're talking, that's not, I'm not trying to argue with you, Red or Betsy, but what I'm telling you is the Catholic Church took out books in the Bible, which shockingly, the Protestants don't even bat an eye that they did that. They're like, well, we don't like the Catholics. Well, yeah, but you definitely follow, hook, line, and sinker for what they did. Smurfy, yes, of course I would be jealous, and that means that I'm fallible. I'm a person. I'm a human. God's not. God's not jealous. He has no reason to be. He is the ultimate love and ultimate power of good in the universe. He doesn't resort to human nature. He doesn't resort to human emotion. Trust me on this one. Okay? So what we've essentially have is the priesthood going and telling us that these books, this is what is real. And why it's important that we even discuss it or talk about it is because we need to understand what the nature of reality is. What is this black goo that we're dealing with? I believe it is the blood of the darkness. It is the evil. It's what envelops these things, these beings. They're prone to the possession of these things. It is the opposite of God. No, he doesn't have to use terms we understand. The priests did that. The priesthood wrote those books, and they wrote them in a way that they could have control. And he doesn't need to be angry or jealous. He just lays it out there. He doesn't have to do anything with us. It's up to us. It is really up to us because we are a part of God. We're not God, but we are born of the life and breath and spark of God. Because regardless of who created us and how, they can't do it. They can't do it without that. You have to have the spark. That's what creates life. Yeah. Shade Viking, thank you for that. He's basically laid it out there. Listen to Wolf, okay, man, and mankind does indeed mold God into what they wish him to be. That's the truth. That is the problem right there. And in the Bible, that's what we're doing. We are molding God, and that's why we can't fight or comprehend. We cannot fight these beings and take them out the way we should because we are not even following the correct path to God. Christ says, I am the only way, and Christ's words actually go counter to some of what the Old Testament says. The Old Testament is a huge stumbling block for Christianity. That's why it shouldn't be Judeo-Christian. That's two different religions. Just because Jesus was born, well, he actually wasn't even born in Judea. He was a Galilean, which is technically not a Judean. By the technical term, he wasn't even Jewish. He was born under the control of Judea and under Jewish law. But he was not technically, he was a Galilean. And they never missed an opportunity to throw punches at him and remind him that he wasn't technically one of them. It's like if I was born, like I'm half white, half Hispanic, and Hispanic people remind me that you're a Wedo all the time, which they did. And white people would be like, hey, you're a breed, which they did. So Jesus was constantly reminded that he wasn't as good as they were. But he spent a lot of time arguing and fighting with them. That's interesting. There was an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., It had black goo and it had another dimension that was dystopian, all kinds of things. Yes, MIDI A, I was referring to dark matter as well. And Red Viking says that Josh Black Goo on the X-Files years ago. Yeah, another form of soft disclosure. Dark matter is the black goo. I believe that that's what that is. And I believe that it is the antithesis of God. It is the absence of light. Pure. It's purely against it. Purely the opposite. Jim Bob, wow. Josh, what are your thoughts on transhumanism? Not good. Not good. I pray. When I pray, this is how I pray. I pray, and I say this, and I'll say a prayer right now. This is how I pray. Lord God, I come unto you in the name of Christ, your Son, and my Lord and Savior. Lord God, I ask you to forgive me for all my sins. I'm a sinner. I've committed many sins. Forgive me for these sins. Please help all of us, Lord God. Come to us in our time of need and open the eyes of the people that they can see who you really are, the truth, and to find the light and the way. Please open our hearts that we can be guided by your Holy Spirit that connects you to all of us. And your Son, Jesus Christ, who sacrificed himself for our sin, Lord God, I ask that you please open the eyes and the hearts and minds of the people that they can find you, the true God, the master of all that is, of heaven and earth, and all of creation. Everything belongs to you. I thank you for sending Christ to save us from our sins. Thank you for allowing your Son to be born in the flesh and to suffer for us. Lord God, help us to find you, the truth, and to get through these times that we're in, and to find the true words that come from you, God, not man, and people to understand who you are as best as you're allowing us to understand. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Your will be done. That's how I pray. That's not a show. That's an actual prayer. And I don't take it lightly. Somebody once said, well, Josh Turner doesn't pray on his show. You know why? Because I'm not a preacher. I don't feel like I'm qualified to preach. Okay? XN says Judeo-Christian. Yep, you're right. It was termed afterwards. JVG, good question. Would you be a Christian if you weren't raised with it, though? I'll say yes, and I'll say this because in my youth, as a younger man, and up into my 30s, I actually went around and went to the temple, Shaolin temple, different Buddhist temples, ashrams. I spent time in mosques, synagogues, and multiple churches, probably 200 different churches, to find the truth. Listening to their dogma and their beliefs, you can listen to people talk about it all day long. You don't have to accept it, right? I was baptized as a Baptist, as a non-denominational, and as a Catholic. So I have learned and I have studied and I have read the Ethiopian Bible. I have read the Coptic Christians, the Orthodox, different versions of Orthodoxy too, Maronite, Catholic, all these other different types of religions and beliefs. The Shiites and the Sunni Muslims, the Sunnis don't believe that the Shiites are real Muslims, and the Shiites don't believe they are. And I've also studied the Druze religion, and I've also studied Judaism extensively. Judaism, I know, is very fallible because it was written after their captivity. Prior to that, it was all orally passed down, which is really hard to keep track of. And so people say this. In the Old Testament, a lot of the he begat this guy, and this guy begat this guy, and this guy was begat by this guy, and then they'll say things like, "Well, that's so that people will see that Jesus' lineage was pure." Really? So think about this: 2,000 years ago, they couldn't see that because obviously they didn't, because Jesus could have pointed to the books and said, "Hey, Look at this. My lineage is completely pure. Don't kill me. But they didn't accept that, and they still killed him. So what good does it do to show all of that if they're not going to believe you anyway? If those are your people and they're the chosen people, then why would they kill you? Doesn't make sense. It's because they're not, and they weren't, and they aren't. Because as soon as Jesus died on the cross, everyone was allowed to become brother and sister in the Christian way of life. He came to teach the word to the Jew, the Greek, and the Gentile, like that all mankind could have salvation. Because of that him sacrificing himself for us. And don't get it twisted. He was not the last sacrifice. And before that, God wanted all this blood. And then he said, you know what? I'm just going to let him murder my son. And then that's going to be it. That right there. That'll be the last sacrifice is my boy. And then we'll call it even. Are you out of your freaking minds? What God on this, anywhere in this plane of existence is going to ask for blood sacrifice? The only ones who do that are the Shaitan, which Jesus says they are the masters of this world. And they're also the father of, the Pharisees. That was who he said your father is. That's who you are. Yes, always pray for discernment too. I agree with that. Shade Viking says, truth is the Bible is for beginners, meaning it's just to get you started into knowing the way. Once you know the way, then you're ready to receive all straight from the source instead. That's exactly right. Another good point by you, Shade. This is crazy. I mean, like people are literally trying to wage war on me and are inciting violence against me because they don't like that I am telling people the truth. And when I said that we could have been seeded here or created by another race of beings, really in the big scheme of things, what the hell does that even matter? It disputes the Old Testament of the old Genesis, which I've just said that is not completely accurate. You got to understand something. These are books that have been written, rewritten, and they actually go back to the Sumerians. And if you go and you look at their history, there it is right there. But it predates 2,800, whatever years prior to when the Hebrews even decided to start writing. I mean, it's just a fact, But people don't want to listen to that. They want to believe that the way that they were taught in their Sunday school is the way it is. And it's cute. It's a cute story, and they put it all together to make it look like a story. Council of Nicaea, it was all scattered, and they threw a bunch of stuff out that they didn't like because it wasn't going to help them control the masses. And so then they put this together, this perfect timeline, and it fits like a glove, like Dummy said. Yeah, it does not. No, it does not. They forced it to fit like a glove by cutting it around and making it look better. And all these different words for God, and they were all doing different things. And they just made it all one person. It was Yahweh. They took out everything else. That's why it says Elohim in the book of Job. You know why? Because Job was written before Genesis. Job predates Genesis. How many people know that? That is a problem. I mean, and trust me, it's just like when I had this situation with this other guy that I used to work with in this field, and everybody's like telling me about that. And I'm like, dude, who knows him better? Somebody that worked with him for 6 years or you? Because you don't even know what he looks like. I do. So why on God's beautiful green earth would you try to argue and tell me that you know better than I do? I mean, I'm sitting here. I could lose everything by saying what I'm saying. Everything that I've built, and it's being challenged by these fundamentalists, but they're wrong. I'm sorry, but you're wrong. And I really am sorry that I'm the one that tells you this, but somebody has to. And if I don't do it, then I am doing a disservice to everybody in this so-called community. I was once told to let my students come to me, and I told this person, she's my good friend, it's one of my good friend's mother. And I told her, I said, I'm not a teacher. She says, yes, you are, whether you want to be or not. Because I said, I don't have students. I don't teach. And then she said, you will. And it doesn't matter whether you want to or not. God calls upon people to do things that they don't want to do or they think that they're not doing. But you will. And so here I am. I didn't start this podcast or this show to be a dictatorial religion maniac, whatever the heck these people are saying, whatever. No, we're just trying to drill to the truth. That's what we're trying to do. Yeah. Jim Bob says, I believe it's man's purpose to get to know God, but our own belief gets in the way. And I argue with Islam all the time because they go even more overboard with the pragmatism. And it's really just pragmatism. Like, oh, don't eat pork because of this and that, but eat cows because cows are more, like it's healthier. Which is crazy because the Jews and the Muslims don't eat pork, but they eat cows, and cows eat their own poop. I've seen them do it. They're one of the nastiest animals out there, man. And they really are. But it was a practical thing because pigs had trichinosis, and if you did not cook them properly, then that would create an issue. Same thing with shellfish. Yes, I have Chopper Dave, Michael Heisner. He's not one of my favorite people, but I mean, whatever. And Nia says a lot of Jewish people don't know that the Old Testament is a Torah. Yeah, because they don't read. Jewish people don't read the Christian Bible and vice versa. People don't know what the Pentateuch is. They don't understand that. They don't know what any of that is. They just don't. But mm-hmm. So let me see if I can do this real quick. I'm going to try to invite somebody. Try to do this. Just one second, folks. If there's anybody else that wants to jump on and talk, I'm all ears, dude. I mean, by all means, just open lines. Do do whatever you want. I have no problem bringing you on. Well, heck, I don't think it's going to work. Let's see if I can do it on here. My computer is not, it just does not work right. Oh, got some issues with it. And the only reason I would bring this up is because of this black goo. Me and my belief, because I'm trying to get to the bottom of it and figure out what it is because, this stuff, I believe it's the opposite of God. I believe it's evil, and it is completely evil. Eminem is actually, he says Yahweh is an ancient Hebrew storm god, not the creator of the universe. A lot of people say he's Enlil. I mean, that's, but these people, they because it's in the Old Testament and they called it Yahweh, to try to make it all be one, and so they'll fight you tooth and nail if you talk about that. They get real upset. And that also doesn't mean that Yahweh is not the one that created us. It just means that there is a higher God, the one that Christ speaks of, and that God is literally the like Jesus says, he's the ultimate power of the universe. And he's also, not only is he the ultimate power in the universe, but he is like the love. He is the light. There is no jealousy in him. So when someone says that they have to sacrifice blood to him to kill animals to God, that's not God. That is not the God that Jesus talks about. You need to cling to Jesus like driftwood in the ocean, because he's going to take you to the Father, the true Father. The Holy Spirit dwells within him, okay? And by extension to you. And so you have to understand something. My rejection of a God that demands blood sacrifice and for you to do horrible things and kill, even if the people are not good, slaughtering children, which they've been told to do over and over again in the Bible. I don't agree with that. I just do not agree with that. I don't think that's correct. I do believe that there is a time and a place for everything. But I don't think that the God that Jesus talks about is the God that's not the same guy. I mean, you can't tell me that's the same guy. There's no way. Because it is how do you say it? Trying to get the words right here. Like it's almost like I mean, like from the very beginning, the God of the Old Testament is not who Jesus was sent by to do anything, because he tells everybody that they're wrong. Now, part of it could be because mankind put these human characteristics on God, and some scholars believe that it was man, in particular the Hebrews, going into becoming the Israelites, which became the Jews, that they did it. They put all these nasty characteristics on God. But really and truly, if you go back all the way to the Sumerians, which is what the Persians were building their belief system on, they did the same thing. They did the same thing. Like it was this God that was angry and did all these, whatever. And so then the Hebrews are in captivity to them, the Israelites, not the Hebrews. They weren't Hebrews anymore. And they became different people. Like the Hebrews are not Jews. That's the thing people don't understand either. The Hebron became a people. They became Israel. And Israel became Judea. And Judea was the south. That was the priesthood. The priests had the best land and the best everything. They occupied everything that was, they pretty much they fleeced the people, believe me. And they said, God wants this, God wants that. So when they wrote it in that Old Testament of the Bible, they're basically saying that this is what God, Hebrew does not mean human. It actually means the Hebron, which is an Egyptian word that meant like outsider or immigrant. But I mean, I guess you could say it means the people, because that's what it became. Like, they'll tell you that that's what it means, but the truth is it was an Egyptian word. But the Jewish people don't accept any of the true history. They reject it all and say none of that is true. That's all not true, and that it means this, this, and that. Well, not really. So what ends up happening is they do a massive recreation of their origin story. They had to rewrite it to make it sound like, hey, we're the masters, we're the master race, we're the master people, whatever. But everybody does that. Everybody has a story where they are the chosen ones. The Aztecs did the same thing. They went into the land of Lakes Texcoco and they said, we are chosen by our God, and he said, blah, 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 here we are. Now we're going to kill all of you because our God said so. I'm going to tell you this, and it's going to piss a lot of people off. It's like, the truth will set you free, but first it'll make you miserable. That's the quote. And as Tony Merkel says, he says the truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off. I'm going to tell you this. The Aztecs did the exact same thing that the children of Israel did. Exactly. They came from the north. They laid down on the people around that region. They murdered and enslaved them all. And they said that their God told them to do it. They said, our God told us to keep walking until we found an eagle eating a snake on a cactus, and that's where we'll stop and we'll set up shop. That was their prophecy, right? It just so happens that the eagle was eating the snake in the most fertile place in Mexico. Oh, how fortuitous. Yes, sure. And then they decide that that is their land. And they went back and built a false history of themselves, which is what they all do. And they said that, oh, we've been here for hundreds more of years. We just showed up and we skulked around in the shadows for a while until we. Okay, yeah, you came and then you were driven out by the Toltecs. And eventually you made your way back in, and then you made some alliances with some other tribes, and then y'all went in and killed everybody. And then created a false narrative, false history, which is not backed up by archaeology. And the history of the Jewish people is not backed up by archaeology either. But because everybody clings to the Old Testament so rabidly, they are willing to falsify. They're willing to find evidence to try to push and force these square pegs into round holes. I see it all the time. And it's not real. It's not true. But they want it to be, because they want it to make sense. Because if it doesn't make sense, then you're like, whoa, what's going on here? It's not making sense to me. And then there'll be people that'll go, yeah, I went and prayed about it, and it reaffirmed that, I'm right and you're wrong. I feel it in my heart. Yeah. And like I said before, in my neighborhood, we have Jewish people live right across the street. 2 houses down from them are some Muslims. Down that way are Hindus and Sikh. I think they're Sikh. And the one next door is married to a Hindu woman. And these other people over here are Wiccan, whatever. And okay, they all feel it in their heart too. There's a few different Christians up and down the street. They all feel it. They all feel it in their heart. They go and they pray. When you tell them something, they run and they go pray. Then they come back and go, no. My God told me you're wrong, and I should believe this way. In fact, when you tell me this, I get headaches and I feel a certain way. It proves to me that I'm right. Sure. Me too. When I hear you talk, it gives me headaches. Because you know what the hell you're talking about. When the Jehovah's Witnesses come and knock on the door, I get a headache and I faint. Or you could just stop lying and talk to these people and tell them what the truth is. Now, when you tell them the truth and they reject it, then it's on them. And then when they take up the sword and choose to come at you and attack you and just do it relentlessly and then use their supposed belief to attack you, then that's really on them. And then they're going to have a lot to answer for. Because if I'm wrong, then I will pay the price for it. But I don't feel that. Danielle, I was trying to get a hold of you like earlier. I saw that you were on. You had a show earlier. I didn't know. I was trying to get off before text came on. I didn't realize you were on. But I sent you a link if you want to join. I sent it to you through Facebook Messenger. I don't know if you check your Messenger, but I sent it to you. Talked to Tex earlier, and he said that he's not going on tonight because he's in Oklahoma. So I won't be stepping on anybody's toes. But if you want to, I did send you the link, Daniel. Because we got some more to talk about. I'm glad that we have a little more time. Let me send this other deal here. So if you guys want to come on and talk about the black goo and what you may know or what you don't know, you're welcome to. If not, then so be it. But one of the things that I want to say about this too, this woman Shelley, we were getting off on the religious thing there, and there's a reason for it, folks. It's not just a random, because I believe the black goo is the antithesis to God. God is the light. And this is what I think it is. And I have my own experience with the black goo, and I've talked about this. I wasn't sober, but I know what I saw. I know what I felt. And this tried to come into my body and take me. That happened when I was young. And I dared not talk about that after talking about, the black dog and, Dogman. I thought, I didn't really know what an experiencer was. I knew that they existed, but I wasn't 100% sold on the idea. And I thought maybe I was special because everybody wants to think that they're special, right? Everybody's like, I'm a special person, so that's why it happened to me, but it doesn't really happen to, yes, Wendy, I can get Paul back on. But it doesn't really happen to just everyday people, whatever, but it does. It happens to a lot of people, a whole bunch. And then you end up having this whole, what do you call it? Like, hold on one second, getting messages here. Okay. So what ends up happening, you have this whole, this, I guess, like revelation that comes to you and you realize it's like a breakthrough and you're like, wow, I'm not special. Everybody's having the same stuff happen. And these people that have these experiences, they have them happen over and over again with different types of phenomena, different types of beings. And so you have to come to the realization that you're just like everybody else. And there's a lot of people who are having these experiences. With Anthony, he didn't believe that he had had anything really profound happen. And then one day I just told him, I said, let's sit down and you go over every encounter you've ever had. Tell me about your encounters. And so he went through each one step by step by step. He had half a dozen strange things happen to him. And then a few smaller ones too. Same thing with Tony. Same thing with everyone else that I had talked to. The average person that I talk to, I would say, has had at least half a dozen encounters in their life with something, but they don't really chalk it up as, hey, this is what happened. Now, I have a friend of mine that had a bunch of weird stuff. He's going to come on the show, and I just got to find a time to get him on. And when he talks about his encounters, in the area where he lived, I saw something really weird one time driving through there. And I haven't even talked about, I don't know that I've talked about it on the show because it's never come up. It wasn't like a cryptid or whatever. Me and my brother saw something one time on that same road, and we don't know what it was. Twice, me and my brother have seen things on different places, and it happened so quick. I didn't know what it was, but it was bizarre. And so, yeah, on that area where he lives in a place called Elroy, I saw something that he's seen too, and it only came up because we were talking about it, him and I. And it's not like one of these big, profound experiences, so I don't bother calling it like an encounter or whatever. But it happened, and it is there, and so when you start to realize that you have had multiple encounters, then you need to start like documenting them and start, thinking about, hey, this is happening to me too. And this happens with a lot of people. Like a lot of people, this happens to. Good night, James. Thank you for your donation. We appreciate it. And so then you come to the realization, well, I'm not really special. But then again, there's a lot of people that say they haven't had anything weird, but I promise you, everybody has. It just wasn't, and from their perspective, it wasn't weird. Or at least weird enough for them to acknowledge and say, hey, man, I had some weird stuff, you know what I mean, happen. They don't even consider it to be like as weird as it really is. So that's the whole thing. I think everybody has it. And just like I think everybody, is, I don't know. Okay, Daniel. That's cool. So anyway, we have this story that was given to us about this black goo and this woman. And here's another one. So she was jogging through the woods one time, and she came across something making noise like a whimpering, guttural, I don't know, something. And she was like, she at this point had given up. She was like, I'm done. I'm no longer going to care. I don't care anymore. I'm just going to live my life. And at this point, I think she was 25 at this point. She was jogging through the woods, and it was fall. So it was starting to get cold. And she as it got colder, she wouldn't jog out in the cold because she'd get sick. She's like, I've always had this weak chest. Like I get sick real bad, whatever, in the fall and in the spring. But she said that during the abductions, like after her abductions, her immune system would be just in the dirt. And then she would be real good and fine. And when everybody else was getting sick, she wouldn't get sick. But then when she get abducted, it would go back down. Then her immune system would come back up. So she was real careful about when she did what she did, like how she jogged and where she went and whatever. So she said she was starting to jog like every day in October leading up to November, because that's when it really starts to get cold up there. So she was like, I'm just trying to get all my jogging in, whatever, and just hunker down for the winter. She's like, and so I was on one of my last runs of the season. And then from there, it was just going to be all treadmill. And so she was jogging, and she hears this weird groaning, guttural, like weird noise. And as she gets around this curve on the trail, she sees this being, there's like this. Just going to tell you, it was this. I believe it was a Bigfoot. She described it to me, and I said, "That's a Sasquatch." There's no other way that it wasn't. That's not what it was. And she said she walked up to it and she looked, and it was laying there, and it was writhing around in agony. She said that at first she thought that there was like this python, like a black snake wrapped around it that was killing it. And then she was like, "Oh!" So she backed up, and she's like, "I'm jogging. I'm in like I have no weapon on me. I have nothing." She's like, I'm listening to my headphones, and now she's quite a bit older than me. So when she was in her 20s, I was like, there was no cell phone. She didn't have no cell phone. And she's like, and I'm nothing. I have a Walkman, it's there's no weapon, nothing. She's like, and I dare not get too close to it. And then I started realizing that there was some black thing coming out of its mouth, and this is where the snake was. This snake-like thing was coming out of its mouth, and it had wrapped around its body. And she's like, but what looked like the tubes, how a snake looks like a tube, it was starting to form like this and all become one big black tomb, so to speak, for this being. And she's like, and I felt hurt, I felt sad, I felt scared, and I was like, and she's like, why am I seeing this? Now, here's one of the interesting things she said about this. She told me, and at this point, I think she told me and Tony both this part. But she said, she's like, I started to realize, like, I was seeing this for a reason. She's like, it was like this black sludge, as she called it sludge. She's like, wanted me to see what it was doing to this being. And I asked her this. I said, do you think that black goo would do the same thing to you that it does to these creatures? Or do you think that those creatures lack something? A very important question. You think that they lack something that allows that black goo to take them? She says at that time, she had gone to church, but she had never really accepted Christ. She muttered, this is what she told me. She said she had muttered the salvation prayer, like, oh yeah, come to my heart, save me, blah, blah, blah. She said, but I was paying lip service to it. I really didn't believe. She's like, but as I got older, she's like, I got with this guy when I was 26. She's still with him to this day, and they're married. They got 3 kids. And she said, he changed everything. She said, we went to 2-3 different churches. We didn't find our niche, but he kept telling me, you know what? We keep praying. We never stop praying. We still pray. She's like, and he introduced me to Christ. She's like, before that, I believed like in God, like there was a God, but I didn't really know what it was or who it was. And she's like, and I didn't believe in Jesus at all. I knew he was a man that got killed by Romans. That's what she said. And she's like, but I learned about Christ. And she's like, and after accepting Christ and praying intensely with this man that I loved, and then ultimately getting married to him, and his brother, and in particular his sister, or his sister and her husband. So it would have been his brother, his sister, and then his sister's husband. They all had this like prayer group that they had created. And most of it was their family members, but there was about, 12 people. And she said, I started going, and she's like, I started getting very heavily into Christ and into the belief of his return. And she said that it actually changed everything. And that during the last time she had an abduction scenario, which was when she was 27, she said, these beings come into my room. She goes, I sat up. She's like, I began to scream at them, passages from the gospel, in particular in Matthew. And she said, these beings were in shock. And I told them, in the name of Christ, you won't take me. She's like, and I really, 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 I got angry. I stood up. She's like, I was standing up on my bed, jumping up and down like a kid. And they just turned and they left. Like they just floated out. And she's like, and I don't think that I've been abducted. She's like, I can't say 100% because I don't know. Like sometimes I'll have these weird dreams. So she's having these dreams still about these beings, but she believes that these are just residual dreams. Like she really does. She believes these are like nightmares from the abductions. And when she went to the therapist, and who was really kind to her and introduced her to the regressionist, when they started doing the regression, her and her boyfriend were shocked at the things that she was saying. And this black goo played a very prominent role. She remembered things from when she was a child. Once when she was 8 years old, when she got really ill, she had a stomach ache, and she went outside from school and she vomited. She thought it was bad chocolate milk, but it turned out because she was sick from drinking it. And she thought that it upset her stomach. And then she said that this black goo came out and went like across the sidewalk and into the ground. She had not remembered that until the regression. And then she started having memories of waking up one night when she was like 11 years old and seeing this giant eye looking at her. And as it was standing there, she just remembers being pulled by her hair forcefully out of her bed. And it was these grays with these big black eyes, and them being like, very aggressive with her. And then she remembers meeting this like reptilian-like creature standing next to in the background behind it was this mantid type being. and they were both just observing her while they put this tube that fed this black goo into her. And then for days afterwards, she says she remembers going and urinating, and it was like this dark color, which scared the crap out of her. And she didn't know what it was or why. So all these horrific things were happening to her, and she has no idea why this is happening. She has no clue. She just knows that it is. And she's like, this is a nightmare. She's like, I'm over here like having dreams of like these, for lack of a better term, demons that are hold on one second. That's great. So anyway, my computer was trying to do something weird. This computer is not a good computer. So anyway, what ended up happening, she was having this dream, these dreams, and I told her, I said, are you sure that these dreams are not, you're not having these abduction scenarios anymore, and that this really is what this is? Is this the end? It's the dreams? And she says, yes. She's like, yes, I do believe that. And so she told me, she's like, Wolf, I don't believe anymore that it's happening. She's like, the day I jumped up and down with the Bible in my hand, she's like, and I had the New Testament in it was the King James version of the Bible, but she had Matthew, and she was reading from it, and she was just talking at 90 miles a minute. And I actually had to slow you down. I had to slow her down. And it was nothing personal, Shelley. I had to, because you were moving too quick. And and then she was like, I thought you could, process things really quickly. I said, yeah, but you were talking 90 miles a minute. But she was going really quickly and telling me this information. And she said that sometimes whenever she tries to tell the information really quickly, she does that because something tries to push it out of her head to where she can't do it. And then at one time during the first conversation, we had to stop because her mind just went blank, which I thought was interesting because that's happened to us multiple times with people. Like one guy, he emailed me like half of an email. It was just like this email was flowing and then stopped in the middle. And then that was it. And so I messaged him, and then he didn't answer me for like a week. Because, at all times, I'm still working on other encounters and still putting together, I'm putting together stuff that you're not going to hear about until next Sunday, right? You got to flesh those stories out, and you got to try to get them out there. And as you saw earlier, a bunch of people in the chat saying, hey, did you get my email? Did you get my email? Did you get my email? Yes, I'm trying to get to those. But there's people sending me emails all the time, sending me messages on Messenger, sending me messages on Instagram. And then there's people that I know in my real life that are talking to me and calling me. People are sending me texts. So you got to understand I'm doing the best I can. And then on top of that, I got to do a ton of research, okay, which is just time consuming as hell. And then I got to run businesses and then try to find time to work out. So it's a grind. But what ended up happening, this guy sent me this long run-on email, and then it just stopped. And I was like, what the heck? So I messaged him, so where's the rest of this? It ends in the middle of a sentence. It was really interesting. And then he messaged me back a week later. He says, dude, I was, that's all I have right now. He goes, my mind just went blank and I couldn't remember what I wanted to tell you. He said, it was like this. That's what he said. His name is George. And he says, it was like a black wall came up and stopped me from talking to you. It was trying to keep me from getting information to you. He goes, and then that night I got assailed by some sort of demonic entity, all black, like some sort of shadow person being, but it was big and more demonic looking. You could see the outlines of horns. He's like, and it was grabbing me. He's like, and I had to scream out. And I cried out to Christ. He's like, and then the next day, and that's when he was messaging me, he said, I tried to message you again, which I saw a little bit. He's like, couldn't do it. So I just kept praying. He goes, and then a week went by, and then I answered you because I could finally think again. I got it, I got through it. That's what these things do. They try to stop you because they don't want you to have that voice. They don't want you to be able to say, in the name of Jesus, I rebuke you. Same reason they don't like saying that Jesus was the Son of Man. Because he comes and he gives us dominion over these beings. And that is a problem for them. I don't know why it has to be so big. That's interesting, Brother Heck. Yep. And if you think back, there was a story that we went over. Well, it's not a story, it's an encounter. But there was a woman that she went through all this torment, and she would not say in the name of Christ. And I asked her multiple times. I said, why did you not scream out in Jesus' name? And she was just like, I was afraid. It's the one about the werewolf type creature that had been stalked her since she was a child, all the way until she was an adult, all through her adulthood. And she said, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I tried. She's like, I would say it in my head, but I didn't want to make it mad. Mr. Wolf, she called it. Scary and sad at the same time. But this thing had her in bondage, basically just controlling her, manipulating her, using her energy. It stole part of her life from her. She said, I walked around at school like in a daze. Well, Shelley did the same thing. She was just sleepwalking because these beings were coming and zapping her energy from her soul and her body and her mind. Fisher Span says sleep paralysis will put you, what did it say? Will put you on so you cannot call out. That is true. Yes. And Fisher Spam, the problem with that too is that when you can't cry out in the like literal sense, like you can't say in the name of Jesus, like that's what they're doing. Part of that sleep paralysis thing, and we did that show, the one with Bettina. Listen to what she says about the sleep paralysis that happened to her. Go back and listen to that live stream. Her and of course Maddie was there too. They were in the studio, but it was very powerful. They said, Brother Heck says, I was determined to say it though, and it did leave when I managed to blurt it out. Yeah, I hate these beings, dude. I don't hate any of my fellow man. I love animals. Everybody knows that. I have, because I've lived with a bunch of them. They're always coming in they're over there looking at me right now, like, what are you doing? Because usually I let them in and they can play and whatever. But they'll interrupt the show. But I don't hate, but I hate what these beings are. I hate what they do. I hate their war with God. And I hate how they've deceived everybody. And they've deceived a large portion of the Christian population. And the mouth of hell will be open wide to accept all the false Christians. You watch what happens. They're going to be like they've been led astray, and they've been worshiping what is not God. And that's not good. I'm just telling you. And Brother Heck says they can't stop you from speaking in your mind. Nope, they cannot. They can try. Yeah, I'm with you, Dick Richards. I hate demons. They're so. People think it's a big joke. Like, I said that to this couple at the gym one day when they were talking about some of the issues that they had with Bigfoot. And they used to live up in Nebraska, and they had a Bigfoot in the. We were kind of talking. I had Paranormal Roundtable with a shirt on, and they started talking to me, and I said, "Oh, you had Bigfoot encounter?" He goes like that. He points at his girlfriend or wife, and she started talking about it. And then I told him, I said, "Yeah, I hate this demonic, because some weird things were happening." I said, "I hate these demons," and they laughed. And I didn't get offended. I just said, "Look, it's what they are." And they were like, well, we don't really believe in demons. So they believe that this Bigfoot could levitate things. Yeah, really, truly. That could levitate things. And I'm not trying to talk bad about this, I'm not going to say their names or whatever. But I guess they weren't really interested in giving me the rest of their story because I see them now at the gym sometimes and they just kind of like, hey, what's up? They don't really talk to me. Oh, well, you're not hurting my feelings. I mean, you don't want to believe what it is. If this thing could levitate your car with you in it, you don't think that's demonic? What do you think that is? That's just a big monkey that's running around the woods that's able to move your car without touching it? Because that's what they told us. And we're sitting there going like, I was with Anthony. It was like, we're sitting there listening to these people talk about this at Planet Fitness a couple months ago. And they were telling us this weird story, this arcane thing that happened, and it's like, I mean, how do you like where is the disconnect? Like, you think that's like Bigfoot's a flesh and blood thing, but it made that happen, or your car just came up off the ground and floated back down? It was just a real quick thing, but like you both experienced it. You know what I mean? He didn't see it. The creature that did it, she did. So how do you wrap your mind around that? Very weird. And I don't understand like the disconnect in that. I don't, and then to say, well, it's not demonic. What the hell is it? I mean, sounds pretty damn demonic to me. I mean, I don't like they say in this field, there are no experts or whatever. There's no experts, right? But there's some people that do know what the hell's going on. And I feel like, I know at least the basics, I mean, that's not if that was a flesh and blood Bigfoot that had no ability, it was just an animal, then why did he not see it, but she did? But then later on, they saw the exact same thing together. He still refused to believe because the thing came and it looked into the window. She saw it dead on. He saw it dead on. Then he said, oh, we had a collective dream. I said, man, this guy's funny. I was telling Anthony on the way home, I said, that guy, he needs to write comedy. He was so in denial. It's like we wanted to do a joke, like a joke channel where we made fun of stuff, and that one of the skits was going to be like we were going to have like a ghost run right in front of us. And I'd be like, and they're like, did you not see that? I didn't see anything. I saw a shadow. I don't know what it was. Then something flies off the wall. Oh, I must have had a mini earthquake, just completely in denial about everything. And then when somebody mentions it to you that it's demonic, then they laugh. I'm like, nope, that was a giant monkey man running around out there. But I didn't see it, even though it came right up to my window. Can't understand. I don't understand the disconnect, dude. I just don't. Dick Richards, exactly. Oh, that's interesting, Maddie. I didn't know that. Maddie says, the only time I ever experienced sleep paralysis was when I was dating a guy who was having all kinds of paranormal stuff happen to him. Glad I'm not dealing with that anymore. I got some stories like that, and that is actually we're working on a podcast episode for that. And this woman, what she went through for the guy that she loved, it is a good story. It is a really sad story, but it's very good. And her name is Sarah. And what Sarah told us, it's a story. It's such a good story. She's not, and I'll be honest, she's not a good storyteller. She's got a lisp, but she's very subconscious about, which I keep telling her is not that big a deal. Like, I don't think it's a very big deal, but she has pauses or whatever because she's self-conscious about it and trying to hide the lisp, which I've tell people this all the time. Don't do that because then it causes a stuttering issue. And I told her, I said, you don't have a stuttering problem. You have a lisp that you're trying to hide because she was born with some people have this too, where the little thing underneath your tongue, it goes all the way to the tip and they can't talk all the way out if they sound kind of like that. But I don't care what you sound like. If you can tell the story correctly, then tell it. don't be ashamed and don't let people's opinions of you. But you get people with the snarky, mean comments, which is another reason why people don't want to go on the shows and tell their stories, because people always want to make fun and they want to be judgmental and ugly, and that's just But she's very self-conscious about it, and I think she speaks beautifully. But that's my opinion. But she told me this story. She was with a guy, and it was horrific. I'll give you a little bit of it, and you know what? I'm gonna bookmark that and say that because I got to tell this one. Coming up pretty soon. I'm going to look that one up and go and finish fleshing it out. It was definitely a demonic entity, and it was a particular demonic entity that was after her boyfriend. He had been hounded by this being for a long time, and it was kind of like whenever we talked about the thing that tried to attack me, it kind of reminded me of what Bettina had seen. And then talking to this woman last month, which originally she reached out to me in October, but of course we were in the middle of this war with these morons. But she was talking about this being having had such a hold on this guy that when he would stay the night at her house, weird stuff would happen to her in the night, dude. Can you imagine that? That would piss me off so bad. Like you're trying to have a relationship and live with this person, and this stuff is going on. So she did the right thing and she put an end to it. She took care of it, and then that was very important. Wow, Maddie. So you said, okay, I think you told us this one, Maddie. Maybe on the show you talked about it. Creepy figure that appeared behind you in a selfie when you were dating that guy, and it freaked me out so much I deleted the picture, which I still had it. Tomorrow night, we're going to tell some ghost stories. I don't know how you feel about ghosts or whatever, but we're gonna just talk. We're gonna do some really scary ghost stories, really freaky stuff, and we're gonna get into that tomorrow night. And there again, there will be an appearance from a Dogman because people love to send me Dogman encounters. But there was something that happened to this one particular couple, and they were living down in South Texas, and then there was another one from West Texas. So I thought it was cool because I got one from each area of Texas. There's like 4 different scary ghost stories, and I thought, oh, this is cool, man. I actually got one from, well, not way North Texas, but a little bit below or a little bit above Fort Worth, and then I got one from out in West Texas. Northwest Texas, and then I got one down from South Texas, and then I got one out in East Texas. So pretty cool. We'll have the four corners of Texas covered tomorrow on some creepy ghost stories, man. And 2 of these I got from a waiter and a waitress. So what I did was I wanted to see if I could come up with a show based on just people who waited on us, tables or whatever. I couldn't do that. I couldn't get because a lot of it was just smaller or whatever. But I do have a guy that I'm going to get on the show too. He's one of the 50 freaking people that I need to get on here who shot a chupacabra. I mean, we were at the theater. And he told me, Nelly, Anthony, and Tony, like point blank, he shot this thing. He goes, I shot it. And it was pretty incredible what he told us. And then there's another guy who was in the Redwood Forest, California. He waited on us, and he saw a pale crawler. And another one still saw this like weird black reptilian thing jumping from tree to tree. We've told that one before, but it's just crazy, man. You get all these stories from these different people, and it's nuts, man. Now here's one to round out this whole black goo thing. After she saw the Bigfoot type creature, when Shelly was backing up away from it and ran away from it, she turned and looked again, and it started to vibrate and like shake, and it looked like it was starting to like disappear, like she could see through it. But she took off running and just got away from it and she's like, I don't know what that was or why that was. But she said that she introduced me to her cousin Lisa, and Lisa had an encounter with the black goo in that pond. But it was even weirder because her and a couple of her friends, Lisa's a few years younger than her, they were there playing on that property one time when her dad had gone out of town. They had somebody break in, and this wasn't nothing supernatural. Somebody broke in and stole some guns and jewelry. And so her dad and her mom were still together at that time. And so they had gone on a trip. And so they had gotten his brother to come and house sit and watch the house because they were afraid it might be somebody they knew that might come back and try to break into their safe. So it was just one of those things where, you know, it happens. People are thieves. So it wasn't anything supernatural, but her little cousin was there. And she says, now you got to talk to my little cousin. I didn't talk to her. I just corresponded with her through email, but her little cousin gave me a crazy story. She said that there was this thing that looked like it was floating the size of a plastic bag in the pond, which was fed by a creek. And she's like, so it had a little bit of a current, so it was kind of going across. But then it turned and it puffed up, and there were like four corners of it. And there was like, you could see underneath it and through it. She said, and the water that was dripping off of it was like, it stopped. It was like, it was stuck. And it was like black glue. She didn't call it black goo. She said it was like black glue, like the kind you'd see like you use to caulk things or stuff like that, like this black, you know. And she said it was weird. And then she said that it folded into a ball and rolled off of what looked like an oil slick onto the land across the pond from them. And when it unfurled, it was this small little 2.5 foot tall creature. Now get this, I'm going to do a show talking about these beings too, because I think this is important. This thing was a crawler. It was a pale crawler. From every description she gave of that thing was a pale crawling humanoid. And it looked like a pale crawler, but it was small. It was like 3.5, 4 feet tall. And now I've gotten lots of stories of these things. People will say, well, I didn't want to give, you know, I didn't want to tell you this story because you do the crawlers, but you know, the one I saw looked small, like it was a little dwarf or a little duende looking thing or a little, whatever you want to call it, an elf type being, whatever, gnome. And she said that it looked like a crawler and it was pale. She said, but there was black lines on its legs and it was going up into the creature. It was like going like black veins, like you could see all through the creature, and it was covering it. And she said, but it was white, and it was like you could see it slowly starting to come up from its feet up into its head. It was like, and it was being covered in this black goo with like lines. And so I said this, and I was like, what, like pinstripes? And she said, like pinstripes. Like it was weird the way it looked. And so I was just like, wow, that's weird. So yeah, masochist mouth, baby crawler. But this is the first time we've heard of these things. We've heard of this too. There was a guy too that, like, kind of funny. We're actually talking about him earlier. He's a dumbass. He doesn't have a channel anymore, but he was all into the flesh and blood of everything. And one of his little dumb friends wrote a book about it, like making him into some kind of flesh and blood animal that lives in caves or something, and that it's just a physical creature that naturally is that way, and they're full of shit, but whatever. I don't believe that for a minute. And I even tried to talk to the guy about his book, and he was just like ignored me because he's a little person like that, but whatever. I don't care. The bottom line is they don't know what the hell they're doing or what they're talking about. This thing, though, and by the same token, I don't either. I don't know what the hell this thing is. I just know what I'm talking about, but I don't know what it is. But this thing, whatever it was, like it unfurled itself and turned into, it was like a little Pokemon, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it's the best way to describe it. And so that her cousin had that happen to her. Now her cousin's like, it was like 62 or something like that now. I mean, she's like young, or younger than the one that told me this other stuff. But she saw that, and she's like, even at my age, I still remember it. I will never forget it. And I was with my friend and my brother, and we were 3 kids. We were all there, and we saw it. She's like, we saw it clear as day. It was like a little, and then it turned and like got down on all fours and just kind of hopped away into the woods. Kind of hopped like a bunny rabbit, but it was like almost like a bunny rabbit, but without ears, you know, and just demonic looking in the face. It just looked evil, had all these teeth, and it was like kind of making this weird popping noise. And so you get these stories of these creatures, you know, and so it's hard to piece it together, people to believe it. But I've gotten so many crawler stories, you know, and plus, too, you know, you lurk around in these groups on Facebook, and then you'll get somebody that'll have a story, and then you reach out to them, you know, and you get the you know, the story, and then sometimes people will be like, well, I know someone who's got a story, but they don't want to talk about it. And a lot of times it's because it doesn't fit the norm. It doesn't fit the narrative. So what ends up happening is one person, and listen to what I'm going to tell you, they'll talk about a type of creature. Like, okay, for example, the baby Godzilla head looking reptilian things, whatever. Well, once that started becoming a thing, then other people were coming out saying, yeah, I saw that too. But it's like nobody really wants to be ridiculed. So they don't want to be the one that comes out and says, hey, I saw a baby version of this crawler thing. So you don't hear about it a lot. And you don't hear about the black-eyed adults like you do the black-eyed kids, because it's like, oh, well, we're supposed to talk about this, but not this, because it has to fit this stupid, irrational paradigm, this narrative. And if it doesn't, then you're an idiot. And you're looked at like some kind of, dumbass. That's a problem for me, because we're not allowed to talk. We are allowed, but I'm saying we're not allowed by the community as a whole. We're all, and so at the pace that people are trying to go, we're never going to get to the truth. We're never going to get to the bottom of any of this. If we keep on like, okay, now this year we're going to be allowed to talk about the Dogman coming out of a portal. Okay, next year we can talk about Bigfoot having black goo on it or whatever. But at this rate, by the year 2059, maybe we can say something and figure something out when I'm already gone and dead. Okay? This is ridiculous. Like, how damn long do I got to wait to figure this stuff out? I personally am not going to sit around and wait for people to get their head out of their ass. If I have to be the first one to come out and say it, then I'm going to be the first one to come out and say it. But once I come out and say it, 1,000 other people always come out and say it. But it really makes me mad that we have to go through all this song and dance. I'm like, look, man, I'm not here. I'm here for a limited time, man. I don't have time to sit here and play these games. So you're either going to believe or you're not going to believe, and I'm going to talk about it. And if you don't like talking about it, then go to the city of night. I don't know what to tell you. I'm going to mute it for a second so I can get to the bottom of this. Man, that bottom part is nasty. It's really healthy. My wife's trying to keep me alive. I get it. It's made with beets and cherry and all kinds of stuff. Because I get gout, and somebody said it so nicely on the comments. I didn't take it down either. I don't care, but they were like, "Isn't that what fat people get from eating too much?" I never had the shit until after I had the Crohn, and after I had Crohn, I had it 3 times in 1 year. Never had a problem with that. I had a kidney stone, so it all started when I had that. And I have several friends who are not even heavy at all, and they get it now, which never happened before. What did Anthony say? He says, we really are floating on a black sea of infinity, it being a mercy that we can't fathom what's beneath. Yep. The best type of cherries to get, and where do I get these cherries? There's different types of cherries, man. I love cherries. I actually worked on a cherry farm years ago when I was a teenager. In Oregon, near the Dalles. I spent a summer up there. Not a whole summer, but like 6 weeks. A very interesting experience. First time I watched another person stab someone with the workers from Mexico, and they got drunk, and one of them wasn't my business. I was like, it wasn't me. Eating too much meat, and I don't eat a lot of meat, and I don't eat a lot of red meat, brother heck. My diet had not changed or done anything. It was after I had I'll say it again. I had Crohn, and my doctor told me that basically, well, yeah, it's connected to kidney function, werewolf, and the way that it's uric acid. It's uric acid buildup. Now, there's something that can knock it out. It's called chanza piedra, and which is stonebreaker in Spanish. That can actually, but it raises my blood pressure, so I can't take it because I have blood pressure issues. The gout that I got didn't start, like I said, until after I had that variant. After I had that variant, I started having that issue. And when I went to the doctor at the hospital, there was a Japanese lady, and she said that she gave a percentage too. She said it was like 330% increase in people who had that, males having gout and having kidney stones. It's caused by a uric acid buildup, and it's one of the side effects of the Crohn. And I have several friends of mine who are around my age, a little bit younger, a little bit older, but same thing in their 40s, never had kidney stones or gout. Now they're getting it all the time. And it started because of that. This is some bad stuff, man. This stuff that they I'm going to get into that on Rumble. Can't talk about it here. They'll censor you. They'll come after me if I do. Gout attacks are absolutely excruciating. Yes, they are. Black tart cherry is what you got to take. That'll really help it. It really decreases the amount of uric acid in your body. And you don't want uric acid crystals in your body, in your bloodstream either, because they'll mess your arteries up. Yep, and it's in particular one strand of it. The Delta wasn't the one that started giving everybody the whatever it was, the Crohn. The Crohn was the one that it wasn't nearly as vicious as the Delta or the original, but the lung effects, like the kidney stones and the gout, really bad. Charles says he's had 4 kidney stones. Oh, that's horrible. Yeah, Jackie, here's the thing about that. I'm going to say this, I'm going to say it again. I don't eat very much beef. I hardly eat any beef, and I don't eat pork at all. So it's not red meat. Looking at me, I'm a big guy, and I'm a powerfully built guy. I don't eat a lot of red meat. My diet consists mostly of chicken. I do eat salmon, but a salmon can cause it too, but you have to eat a lot. And it's not nearly as bad as tuna. Now, I used to eat a lot of tuna, but now I can't. I can't eat tuna at all because it's so loaded with that uric acid. And somebody says low sodium. I am on a low sodium diet and have been for a long time. So that's not it. I mean, it's not some of the factors. I hate organ meat. I don't touch it. I won't eat it. And I eat very little beef. I don't eat a lot of beef. And in fact, some of the science now is saying that beef is not really much of a contributor to gout so much as like organ meat and certain types of like lamb and pork are more gout prone, whatever. But I just don't eat a lot of beef, man. Every now and then I'll eat a burger. It has to be low sodium and it has to be leaner meat. I can't, I just won't, and I don't eat a lot of steak. We give away a lot of steak at Christmas. We do that food drive every year for our company, but I don't partake in it. I think since December, I've eaten steak maybe twice. And that's like one steak, and it's like a little, 8 to 10 ounce steak. I don't eat it. I just don't. I love fish a lot, but I can't eat it now because of that. I will eat salmon, like I said, on occasion, and every now and then I'll eat a little piece of snapper, orange roughy, or maybe I'll eat a what's the other one I like? Trout. But I can't eat much of it now. Yeah, quantum potential, I'd have to disagree with that. Just lemon and water doesn't really bring it under control. I've drank copious amounts of lemon. It doesn't really stop it. Tingu Rose, typically gout does have a genetic factor to it. And I never had it in my life until last year. Like it had never had gout, and then all of a sudden gout 3 times and a kidney stone all in 1 year. It was horrible. It was terrible. And it was just, it happened after I had that freaking whatever. Yeah, I didn't give up seafood, Maddie. I just had to take it easy on it. I eat shrimp every once in a while. I had some the other day. I don't eat a lot of it. Yes, Rebecca Oliver says gout used to be called the rich man's disease because men who ate red meat and drank red wine got it, but that's no longer true. Too many environmental factors are creating strange problems. Well, the strange problem came, I can tell you right now, it's from the Quran, because the common denominator for all of us that were getting it was after having that. And I got friends who are fit as a fiddle, like my friend Jack. He's like in really good shape. He installs windows for a living. And he got gout over and over again. He is not fat at all. He's in hellified shape. He's a little bit younger. He's 2 years younger than me. Yes, Cowboy, cherries do help with gout. It's weird too. You see that? Read what she said. For example, pollen has more spikes now than in previous decades, leading to more people having severe allergies. Now, that could be Mandela effect. Who knows? They're always messing with so much shit, man. You can't ever, who knows what these people do. Thank you for that donation, Richard. Can't say, make sure I get this name right because my eyes. It's Knoerz, Noerzer, because I'm sure the K is probably silent. I hear Anthony in there being upset about something. Eat for your blood type is a great info on what benefits your food. Yes, that's true too. You can eat for your blood type. That is a real thing. But like I said, I don't eat a lot of red meat, and I didn't before I got the gout. It's not like I got gout, so I'm gonna have to stop eating red meat. I didn't. I've never been a big red meat eater. Now I do like brisket, and I'll eat brisket maybe once every couple weeks. So every couple weeks I'll eat some brisket, but I'm not a steaky. I don't like steak. It's nothing to it, man. It's just like you gotta sit there and cut it, and you gotta sit there and chew it and chew it and chew it, and it's just like, I don't know, man. It's just everybody loves steak, and I just don't, man. I've never been into it. I liked chicken fried steak that my grandmother used to make, or the pan fried steak, which was lightly breaded, where you could barely tell it was breaded. That was the only steak I've ever really liked. I don't like steak. It's just not my thing, man. Well, that's probably true too, Bill and T. And we're gonna talk about a lot of this too, because there's a lot of information I know about that, and I can tell you, but I can't on this show. That's weird, Dave. See, I don't get. That's weird, dude. Thorndale meats. Thorndale meats. What I have been eating a lot of from Thorndale when I do go, he makes this turkey. Now turkey will give you gout too. Now I've been a big turkey eater. I've always liked a lot of turkey, but especially the dark meat. I don't eat a lot of the dark meat turkey because dark meat gives you gout. So that there again, it's not really. It's mostly the dark meat that does it, and I don't eat a lot of dark meat turkey. But he makes this turkey breast really, really good. Like it is amazing how he seasons it and smokes it. Him and his people, and then their chicken quarters, both the leg, thigh, and the breast wing, whatever, really good, man, really good. His chopped beef is really good, but like I said, I don't eat red meat that often. It's just not my thing. Duck, I don't eat duck, man. It's very rich. That causes gout. So does goose. Rich says, I would like your recommendations on gold versus silver. Get gold and get silver. You will obviously be able to get a lot more silver than gold, but I would invest heavily in both if you can. And I keep telling people, buy NVIDIA. stock. Yeah, there's a few other stocks that I'll talk about some of that a little more in depth on Rumble, if you'd like. I'm going to start doing a day show on Rumble that we're going to do like once a week or twice a week, maybe, where people can ask all kinds of questions about all kinds of things. Because my channel over there on Rumble, you can actually have like multiple shows from one channel. Whereas here we can only have one show, one channel, one show. So I can have an economic show, I can have a history show, I can have an investment show or whatever, and I can talk about all these different things. I could have one that just talks about Bible theology and we can talk about the Greek, translations, and we can talk into all these different, whatever. And you can do that on Rumble. There's all these different options, but I got to make sure that people are going to follow me. So starting not this coming Saturday, but the Saturday after, the second Saturday in May, if you're looking for the show, that's where it's going to be. Yes, Jackie says, will you give us a heads up on day and time on Rumble? Yeah, of course. Rich, do not buy the virtual. I repeat, do not get virtual. Don't get into certificates, things like that. Okay? Do not do that. Don't. Get the actual gold, the actual silver. Wolf, will you give us a heads up on a day and time on Rumble? Absolutely. Smurfy, that's awesome. Says my overall stock picks do 30% gain. That's good. Try to get you a savings account with a high APY, annual percentage yield. You're going to want that. I found one. It's got like 4.8, and so I have a savings account where my money is. I'm making money while I sleep. But if you're not making money while you sleep, then you'll always be broke. And I hate to say that. It's Warren Buffett. It's a truth. I have several investments, and including my job, I make money while I sleep, which I only sleep a few hours a day. But you can literally fix your life and set it up to where you can make money while you sleep. You can do like, not only do I have it, like with the show. Let's just start for that, for example. Economically, I didn't start this to make money. I'm not trying to make money at it, but I do need money from the show so that I can keep supporting the show, so I don't have to do all these other things to support it. I want it to be able to stand on its own. And I am going to have to probably scale back a little bit in the coming months because I'm doing way too much work on the show. And the payoff is not real big. And I have to try to focus on my financial end to keep making money so I can keep producing the show. But one of the things that you got to do is like, for example, the show makes us money while we sleep. Wake up and it'll show you the Google AdSense on there, like what you made from the ads that play on the show. And I could be a dick and do what some of these bozos do, which one of them I'm really disappointed in. I like the guy until I saw how he bled people with commercials. And I was like, man, F that, dude. That's not cool. I mean, like, he knows people are going to watch, so he just bled them dry with commercials, man. And so we put, I think, 4 on there, 1 every 15 minutes, which is low. So I had somebody who was an advisor to me, and he does YouTube, and he said, look, and I got to know him, reached out to him. He's a pretty cool guy. He's got a channel all about doing YouTube. He's got a huge following. And he was cool enough to talk to me about 2 months ago, back in March. I say 2 months ago because it's almost May. But he said, what you're doing is a mistake. You need to have at least 6 commercials on each show, and that will increase your yield by 50% right now. And I told him, not interested in that. And he goes, well, then you're gonna lose money. I said, okay, fine. He's like, your show's big enough and you have a dedicated enough following. It's not really going to hurt you. They'll listen. I said, I know they will. But I still would not do to you what I wouldn't want done to me. Now, if I had to listen to commercials because I couldn't afford to buy YouTube Premium, I could tell you this. I would be upset if I had to sit through 6 freaking commercials an hour. See, he's saying, oh, put 6 commercials on there an hour. That'll increase yours by 50%. Yeah, it will. And I'll be making a lot more money. but I want people to listen to what I have to say. And I'm not going to subject people to that because they can't afford to not do it. People who are struggling financially have enough hell going through. Why the one thing that they have could be us, the positive thing that they have, the fun thing that they love and that they like. And then you're going to do that to them and make them have to suffer even more as they're trying to enjoy something. So I think it's fair that we only do one commercial every 15 minutes, 4 commercials an hour. That way that everybody, gets their whatever, and they don't have to sit there and be like every few minutes. Because at one time, Tube was doing the whole, like, putting the commercials in there on themselves. And it was just, there was like a commercial every 5 minutes. Like, what the hell is this, dude? And because you can't listen to it. Like, that's untenable. So I got rid of that. I was like, we're not doing that crap. I think you're talking about the chemtrails, Debbie. Yes, it is unbelievable where people will look up at the sky and be like, well, it's just clouds. I don't see nothing. But those are the same idiots that are going to argue with you about what the Bible says because they know, because America, and they were kids. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know how much control we have over the ads on the live. I know that we can set it up for the 1 hour episodes, the pre-records, but I don't know how it does it on the live. I don't think it messes with it on the live. I think after that, it's just set to a certain way and it does it. Yes, Debbie says, you were my distraction from a stressful life. Yep, the sky's a gray blanket half the year now. Okay, so Anthony just said I put one ad break every 20 minutes on the live streams. So that's less than I thought. I thought we did one every 15, which would be 4 per hour, which is what I thought we were doing. So I told that guy something completely wrong because he was recommending that we do 6 per hour because that's standard according to him. Wow. Mouse says, lately on other channels, I skip an ad just to get to another. Oh, God. And don't let them fool you. A lot of these people saying, oh, I can't help it, whatever. I'm pretty sure it's set to a certain thing that you have control. And these people are telling you that because, well, they want you to believe that shit. I don't know about the lives. I mean, maybe if they're doing it during the live, I don't think so. Has anybody noticed that? Because I mean, I don't watch a whole lot of the bigger channels' lives. I'm one of the biggest channels that has a live. Well, there's the Swamp Man, but do you really believe that that's what he's doing? I mean, come on, dude. So full of shit, but whatever. Smurfy, your investments are in oil. Okay. I would say that's a very hard one. I mean, natural resources are good. And there's another thing that you can do with oil. I can talk about that one day on the show on Rumble. I can get into it and tell you how to invest in oil. Smurfy, you probably already know what I'm talking about. If you know what I'm talking about, then say it on there, and then I can go from there. But if not, we'll just move on. Smurfy says the future is in modular nuclear reactors. You heard it here. Future's in a lot of things, but some of it's stupid. I mean, it's really stupid what we're looking at, and you're going like, well, I mean, I'll make money at it, but it's still retarded. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Thank you for that, Muse Guide, for being a new member. Okay, so Anthony just said you absolutely have full control over how many ads on your videos or whether ads play while live streaming. So so that's something I did not know 100%. Anthony, you were in charge of that. I had actually told Anthony to put four commercials per hour because that was less than the standard. So he actually put 3. So whatever. I guess that's one way we could generate income, though, is just add one more, make it still less than standard. Yeah, Mike, I think it is too. Premium is worth the money, man, because you pay like what, $13, $14 and you don't have to deal with ads. Human Being asked a very pertinent question. Are all stories done for tonight? No, I'll finish up. I'll say what I got to say, and then we'll get out of here. So, in conclusion, I guess to get done with what we're talking about right now, we're just kind of talking whatever. But I understand if you're here, you want to hear the stories. I'll give you that. The person that I talked to, about this black goo, and I asked her, and this is the last thing that I'll tell you about Shelley up in Nova Scotia, was that I asked her, I said, did you have an issue where you were abducted other than that goo you saw that one time? And she says, when I woke up one time from my bed, because I asked her about the black goo on her, and she said that not only did she have that situation where it came out of her mouth when she was a child, she goes, but I looked in the mirror, my eyes were all black, and I just like squeezed them. She's like, and I was a kid, and I was so terrified of what I was looking at, and this black tears came out of my eyes, and they went into the drain, and they connected, and they went down into the drain. So it's a very weird thing. It's a very, I don't know, man. I've never had anything like that happen to me. Thank God. I did have it try to envelop me when I was in bed one night. And I've talked about it on the show, on the live stream. So. Rich Norzer says, I hate the cowgirls. However, I've been listening to you a long time. I pop in and give you shut. A lot of people hate the Cowboys. I mean, they hate the Cowboys because they used to beat everybody, but then they know they won't anymore, and they don't, because for years and years and years, there's been a push by the league to keep them out. And I don't care what anybody says. It was very obvious this past year how many teams were getting bad calls. I mean, it was very obvious. I think that the commissioner is very crooked. I think that they have been for a long time. And I think that Jones is complacent, and he's happy just to sit back and make money. I think that's all he cares about. I don't think he gives a crap about it. As long as he makes his merchandising, which is, I'm not gonna support it. I'm not gonna buy any of their merchandise. I'm just not. I think he's okay with them getting screwed. I like both. Jai C. Van, I like the Astros and the Rangers pretty much equally. I'm happy to see either one of them win. I was glad to see the Rangers win. I would have loved to see the Astros win the third World Series, and they would have if they would have gotten there and beaten the Diamondbacks. But I was happy to see the Rangers get theirs. I like both. It's like the Cowboys and the Texans. I like both. I like the Buccaneers too. I'm also a Red Sox fan. And I like teams from Las Vegas because I stayed in Vegas for a while, and I always wished that they would have had a sports team. And I always had a thing for the Raiders. I always did, but they were in California. So now that they're in Las Vegas, I root for them all. I root for them hardcore. I love the Raiders. I like the Raiders and the Bucks. And I think that with this black goo, though, like I said, I really believe that this is something that is, it's a part of our world. It's a part of the universe. It's a part of the galaxy, solar system, whatever. It's out there. It is dark matter. I believe that's what it is. And it's the antithesis to God. God is the light that gives his holy presence to everybody, to everything. But that's just me. People are going to believe what they want to believe. At the end of the day, you can't make them believe any different. So, folks, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to take off. I'm going to leave. I'm going to go because the stories are over. And Mascus says, I see hardly any ads on this channel live stream. The one guy I watch, different community, I can hardly watch his live because it spams the ads so frequently I cannot keep track of what he says. Wow. That's ridiculous, dude. Those are people that are trying to live off of their channel. That's all it is. And I'm not trying to be mean or anything like that. They're welcome to do what they want with their channel, but that's not me. I can't put things behind a paywall. There are too many people who can't afford it, and they won't be able to get out here, Martis. He stands there. So what we need to do is reconvene tomorrow night. We'll reconvene tomorrow night. We will be dropping a pre-record about the Lobozan of Brazil, and we got an incredible story. Get out here, Beans and Mars over here hanging out by the door. Yeah, I don't blame you, Chris. I don't have the patience for that. I don't have patience for that bullshit either. So be checking that out on Wednesday. We're going to drop that on Wednesday. Or maybe Thursday before the show. I don't know. Maybe we'll do it Wednesday. Maybe we'll do it Thursday. But I was thinking like Thursday, maybe before Blondes and Booze, and then it'll lead right into Blondes and Booze. So probably Thursday, and we'll just leave Wednesday to Barton. I love Barton and I love his show. I just can't comment on it because, and it's like I'm there usually watching. Haven't been the last couple of weeks because Larry's in there. Simple as that. And I was told to stay as far away from him as possible. He's digging his own hole. Let him keep digging, him and the other guys. But he's in there just running around. Hey, to everybody, like, whatever, dude. I don't care. I'm not going to deal with that guy. So I don't want to be tempted. I don't want to say nothing. So my lawyer told me basically just stay away from wherever he's at. That's the best policy. And I believe that's probably what I got to do. So him and a couple other idiots that are running around in there that Murphy. What is that? All right, folks. I had fun, man. Tonight I would shoot with 3 hours and 40 minutes, man. I made sure you got your money's worth though. Got to get going here, man. I'm getting messages from work. All right, man. I'll see you. I guess Texas Front Porch is live right now. No. Oh, I guess so. I guess so anyway, yeah, head over to Texas Front Porch. I guess Brandy, Monica, and BMR are on. All right, guys, I'll see you. I gotta go. Good night.